Man with dark hair ascends the stone stairs as a bell rings out. Vivian stands on a quiet balcony as a door creaks open behind her. A voice suddenly calls out to her. She turns with a startled swish of her pink hair. Vivian greets Sir Rahidus and asks why he has come to see her. Rahidus brushes back his dark hair with a quiet rustle. He approaches her to ask if she heard the news from the banquet. He confirms that the crown prince proposed to her. Vivian reacts with a sudden thumping heart. She tells him she would much rather marry a foreign noble. She explains her urgent need to get married to avoid the prince. She suggests finding someone for a one-year contract marriage. Rahidus scoffs and asks if she would really marry another man. He reminds her of her promise to stay with him forever. He moves closer with a sudden thud, startling her. He claims she once said she wanted to marry him. Vivian panics as she tries to remember saying such a thing. She feels like trash while looking into his hurt eyes. She insists that she never said anything like that to him. His strange behavior causes her to freeze in confusion. She wonders why he reminds her so much of a certain child. A childhood memory shows two friends saying goodbye. He demands an answer as she realizes his true identity. He demonstrates that marriage requires holding hands like this. He adds that marriage also involves kissing. He asks if she can really do those things with another man. Her childhood best friend was actually a man all along. She realizes she has been completely scammed. 10 years ago, a high fever changed everything. She woke up realizing she had transmigrated into a novel. She was the female lead of the original story. Crown Prince Alan was the intended male lead. The story featured a commoner girl winning the prince's heart. The narrative ended in tragedy after the heroine's death. Vivian realized she was fated to be terminally ill. Her disease was identified as mana overload syndrome. Mana builds up in the heart until it becomes fatal. Eventually, the built-up energy causes a violent explosion. She searched for a silver lining to her grim fate. She discovered a possible way to escape the sad ending. Rahel Edelwine was the key villainess of the story. Rahel was depicted as the ambitious final boss of the novel. Rahel's unique constitution allowed her to absorb surrounding mala. The original heroine had refused Rahal's help. Vivian decided to throw away the original story entirely. She chose to stay by Rahel's side to survive. Her perfect plan for survival was finally met. Young Vivian happily shouts that she is coming. She arrives at the gates of the grand mansion. Vivian observes the Edelwine Dukespiller. She plans to approach Rahel Edelwine. Vivian acknowledges her commoner status first. She prepares her secret infiltration strategy. Servants maintain the mansion's grand exterior. Vivian spies on the estate staff. She prepares for her first move. The pink-haired girl greets the servants. The staff notice the unexpected visitor. Vivian anticipates a very chilly reception. She maintains a bright, cheerful demeanor. She proudly announces her young age. Vivian explains her friendly visit's purpose. She offers to share village secrets. Vivian recommends a special skin lotion. A maid asks about the price. Her social trap is successfully set. She excitedly mentions local innrurers. Vivian advises the guard on drinks. She mocks a local drunk's behavior. The servants find her stories hilarious. Vivian celebrates her successful social mission. A servant asks about local teas. She promises to lead the way. Vivian waves as she departs briefly. She is satisfied with today's work. She regrets not meeting Rahel yet. Vivian pauses to look at Rilla's. She spots a dark-haired girl walking. Vivian finally identifies her target, Rahel. A silent realization fills the air. A magical mascot celebrates the story. Vivian identifies the mysterious dark-haired girl. She is awestruck by Rahel's appearance. Vivian admires the girl's cold piety. She realizes she must act immediately. Vivian waves enthusiastically at the window. Rahel turns away from her abruptly. Vivian worries about being too aggressive. She decides to try again later. She leaves a strong first impression. Her first goal is successfully achieved. Vivian leads a servant to cheese. The shopkeeper questions the noble's request. Vivian passionately defends the local product. She officially introduces herself as Vivian. The servant appreciates her neighborly help. Vivian plots to collect her Vammer. She begins her walk back home. Her stomach rumbles with a loud growl. Her stomach growls with a loud rumble. James offers to help the hungry child. Vivian is delighted by the unexpected kindness. He invites her inside for his mac. Vivian is overjoyed by the generous offer. She savorously enjoys a large strawberry cake. The servants watch her eat with worth. A maid offers Vivian a garden tour. They discuss the ice princess living there. Vivian inquires about the Duke's pretty daughter. A door swings open with a sudden creak. A freckled girl stops in her tracks. Sally demands to know who let Vivian in. The maid encourages Sally to be friendly. Sally arrogantly refuses to play with a bumpkin. Vivian wonders about the rude girl's identity. The maid explains Sally's mother's influence. Sally insults Vivian as a dirty street beggar. A door swings open with a sharp creak. The servants scramble with a quick rustle. Vivian realizes she is facing a powerful man. Duke Count Edelwine makes a grand entrance. Sally immediately tattles to the Duke. Vivian plans to impress the master of the house. The Duke questions Vivian's unauthorized entry. James justifies his hospitality with the cheese story. The Duke is surprised by her negotiation skills. Vivian politely asks permission to speak. She praises the Duke's legendary honor. He realizes she is manipulating his reputation. He fears appearing dishonorable to a child. He orders Owen to reward her properly. Sally is shocked by the Duke's mercy. The Duke coldly challenges Sally's dissent. Sally submissively accepts his final judgment. Vivian vows future repayment for his kindness. The Duke finds her persistence quite amusing. He acknowledges how useful smart children are. He believes he needs a girl her age. The Duke departs with his head builder. A baker exits the shop while Vivian squeaks. The man calls out to stop Vivian's work. Vivian greets her father, Dias Hessen. She worries about her secret villa visits. She recalls her father's strict past warnings. She promises to be a diligent worker. A sudden, sharp crack sounds. Vivian rushes to her fallen father's side. A quick, soft click sounds. She wonders why he hides his dairy. Vivian critiqued her father's baking skills, wondering how such a strange purple color was even possible. A transition notes that customers still visit the shop despite the questionable goods. Village women greet Vivian, praising her for being such a good girl and helping her father. Dias Hessen, Vivian's handsome father, greets the morning with a radiant and charming smile. The women gush over his looks, causing the bashful man to act flustered by the compliments. Vivian laments that her father's glasses are hiding his beauty and hurting their potential sales. The visitors say their goodbyes, and Vivian cheerfully waves as they depart. Dias invites Vivian to start getting the shop ready for the day's customers. A sudden, rhythmic clopping of hooves echoes loudly against the stone pavement. A grand carriage unexpectedly pulls up and stops right in front of the bakery. Dias is completely bewildered, wondering why such a high-class carriage would stop at their shop. Vivian gasps in shock as she catches sight of a very familiar noble crest. The carriage is revealed to belong to the prestigious and powerful House of Edelwine. A sudden, sharp realization hits Vivian as she stares at the carriage in disbelief. The gleaming silver crest confirms that the visitors are indeed from the Duke's household. A man begins to step out of the carriage as Vivian watches with bated breath. Owen, the Duke's head butler, makes a formal and imposing entrance onto the street. Owen offers a polite greeting, leaving Vivian wondering why he has arrived so suddenly. A heavy, tense atmosphere settles as a hand rests firmly on Vivian's shoulder. Dias demands to know how Owen knows his daughter, his eyes narrowing with intense suspicion. A fierce, fiery aura erupts from Dias as he glares at the butler with protective rage. Vivian nervously tries to defuse the situation by asking Owen if he came for bread. Owen clarifies that he has come to discuss an entirely different and serious matter. The butler stands ready to deliver a formal message from the Duke himself. Owen introduces himself officially as the butler of the Edelwine Duchy. He states his intention to speak plainly and get straight to the point of his visit. Owen reveals the Duke's wish for Vivian to become Lady Rahel's official playmate. Vivian is stunned by the news, her heart racing at the mention of the original story's key character. Owen mentions that the Duke spoke very highly of Vivian's potential after their meeting yesterday. Dias' suspicion turns to anger as he realizes his daughter met the Duke behind his back. Owen promises that the Edelwine name will provide full support for anything Vivian needs. Vivian hopes the conditions are good enough to sway her father, despite her anxiety. Dias looks down with a stern, disapproving expression that signals his rejection of the offer. He flatly refuses Owen's proposal, claiming Vivian is far too lacking for such a role. Vivian panics as she realizes her perfect plan for survival is being ruined by her father. She desperately pulls at Dias' sleeve, insisting that they need to have a private talk. Dias leads his daughter away with a quick and determined step to speak in private. He demands an explanation, asking why she went to the Duke's villa in the first place. Vivian realizes that her usual cute act and tantrums won't be enough to handle his anger. She admits her curiosity led her to peek at the villa, where she ran into the Duke. Dias remains firm, intending to speak with the butler and decline the offer immediately. Vivian adamantly protests, shouting that she absolutely has to go to the duchy. Dias is confused and asks why she is so insistent on leaving home. Vivian struggles to find an answer, unable to reveal the truth about Rahel or the original story. She prepares to make a final, emotional plea to convince her stubborn father. Diaz is taken aback by the sudden, intense determination shining in Vivian's eyes. He expresses deep concern, asking if she is hiding a worsening illness from him. Vivian reassures him, urging him to calm down as she prepares her explanation. She tells him she wants to get better and live a long, happy life by his side. Vivian argues that the Duke's connections to mages and doctors could be her only chance for a cure. The white-haired man looks down with a pensive and conflicted expression. Vivian watches her father intently as he finally gives his soft agreement. A warm, sunlit glow surrounds the two as they share a tender embrace. Vivian is overcome with happiness, hugging her father with a radiant smile. The scene shifts to the next day as a carriage arrives at the estate. Sunlight glints beautifully off the grand glass conservatory in the garden. Owen formally welcomes Vivian to the table as a soft clinking of porcelain sounds. The butler politely asks Vivian to wait while he fetches the young lady. Vivian waits with nervous excitement, realizing her formal meeting with Rahel is close. She adjusts her dress and pinches her cheeks to ensure she looks her best. Her attention is caught by the sound of a sudden, heavy door swinging open. Vivian turns with a huge smile, expecting to see the girl she admires. Sally appears instead, her furious aura looming like a giant, snarling cat. Vivian's expression shifts into a sly and confident smirk. She mockingly tells Sally she looks forward to working alongside her. Sally is offended, questioning who someone like Vivian thinks they are. The freckled girl demands to know who let Vivian in without permission. Vivian boldly asks if the Duke himself requires her mother's permission as well. She goads Sally into telling her mother that a beggar has been invited. Vivian sticks her tongue out as the angry girl storms away. She sits alone once more, noting that Rahel still hasn't arrived. A sudden, sharp pang of discomfort flashes across Vivian's face. Her heart begins to beat with a rhythmic, heavy thumping sound. Vivian realizes with dread that her mana overload symptoms are returning. She collapses to the floor, panting as her chest feels ready to burst. The pain intensifies as she struggles to maintain her composure. Vivian realizes she must leave before anyone sees her in this state. She decides to find a place to hide until the pain subsides. Stumbling through a doorway, Vivian accidentally crashes into another person. She looks up in a daze, her eyes wide with shock. Vivian begins to stammer out a frantic and breathless apology. She is stunned into silence as Rahel stands before her in the flowers. A soft rustling of fabric sounds as Vivian steadies herself. She stares in awe at the dark-haired girl's cold and distant beauty. Vivian stands frozen, realizing she has finally encountered her target. She nervously announces that she is to be the new playmate. Rahel turns away without a word, walking back toward the conservatory. Vivian wonders if the heroine's cold reception is an unavoidable fate. A sudden, startling thought causes Vivian to pause in her tracks. She realizes with a gasp that her physical pain has completely vanished. Vivian recalls her usual lingering aches and marvels at Rahel's healing presence. The scene shifts as Vivian begins to frantically chase after the departing girl. She renews her inner vow to become Rahel's absolute best friend. Vivian enthusiastically declares her affection and promises to make her lady happy. Rahel stops and turns back with a sharp, heavy thud of her book closing. The dark-haired girl coldly orders Vivian to never come back again. Vivian's hopeful world shatters with a loud, sharp crash sounding. She is left alone and dejected as Rahel disappears into the estate. Vivian cries out desperately for her lady to wait for her. A fierce, fiery determination suddenly erupts in Vivian's golden eyes. Vivian acts out a play about persistence. She encourages herself to stay focused. Vivian grows impatient waiting for her lady. She notes 30 minutes have passed alone. Vivian fears she has been stood up. A sudden movement catches her hopeful attention. She begins to offer a formal greeting. Vivian stops as a different girl appears. Sally looks down with a mocking smirk. Sally cruelly mimics Vivian and calls her uneducated. The freckled girl questions Vivian's presence there. She claims Rahel finds Vivian beneath her. Sally scolds her for being a clueless bother. Vivian remains silent as her face shadows. She suddenly looks up with a smile. Vivian questions the truth of Sally's claims. She warns of the Duke's certain anger. Sally defensively insists she is telling the truth. Vivian suddenly sprints away from the conservatory. Sally frantically chases after the escaping girl. Vivian refuses to give up her mission. She insists on seeing the lady today. Vivian stops as she spots her target. Sally catches up and calls to Rahel. She complains about Vivian's insistence on meeting. Rahel coldly asks why Vivian has come. Vivian notices Sally's smugness and forms a plan. She suggests a new way to have fun. Vivian proposes taking a trip to the dam. Sally interrupts, claiming Rahel hates leaving home. Rahel quietly disagrees with her servant's claim. Vivian realizes the lady wishes to go out. Memories reveal Rahel's father was a traitor. The Empire never truly forgave the girl's existence. Rahel lived in hiding to avoid attention. She lived as if dead within the estate. Vivian believes Rahel desires freedom and rebellion. She formally invites the lady to the Tan. Rahel begins to speak with a stunned expression. A woman arrives and declares it impossible. Vivian suspects this newcomer is Sally's mother. The woman approaches with a stern demeanor. The newcomer is identified as Rahel's nanny. Margaret Hayes claims the lady is busy. Vivian is frustrated by the nanny's control. She asks if they can go before tea. Margaret is offended while Vivian mentions the Duke. The nanny furiously asserts her educational authority. The Duke arrives and observes the argument. He asks if he ever forbade Rahel's outings. Margaret stammers out a weak excuse about her concern for the lady, but the Duke interjects that more guards can be assigned if safety is truly the issue. The Duke looks down with a cold gaze as Rahel stands before him with a somber expression. The Duke speaks to Rahel, saying if she wishes to go, then she should go, but she must return before sunset. Margaret attempts to protest by mentioning that the lady is supposed to attend etiquette lessons soon, but the Duke remains unmoved by her excuses. The Duke dismisses the nanny's concern by suggesting the lessons be postponed and orders Owen to prepare a carriage immediately, to which Owen agrees. Vivian marveling at the Duke's power. Realizing Sally and the nanny are trying to drive her away, Vivian wonders if she should try walking the tightrope. Vivian runs toward the Duke on the stairs with a cheerful shout of his title as Rahel and the servants watch in surprise. She offers a deep, polite bow, apologizing that she wanted to greet him, but didn't because he seemed busy. The Duke notes they have already met, but Vivian points out that this is her official greeting as Rahel's new playmate. She mentions her father's lessons about introducing oneself and saying where you live when visiting a friend's house, while the Duke looks on with a pensive expression. Vivian beams with a pure smile. A heavy, freezing silence suddenly descends. Margaret loses her composure and grabs Vivian, loudly berating her for being an uneducated commoner while attempting to apologize to the Duke. Sudden, booming laughter echoes through the hall. Both Margaret and Vivian look up in genuine shock as the tension suddenly breaks. The Duke laughs heartily and orders Owen to prepare a grand banquet to celebrate the occasion. Vivian celebrates her success of joy. Rahel stands in a dazed silence. Rahel sits alone of home. Inside the carriage, Vivian asks why Rahel is so reluctant to go out, only to be met with a flat refusal. Vivian persistently hovers around her lady, urging her to share the reason for her hesitation. Rahel admits she dislikes the noise and chaos of the outside world. She clenches her fists tightly, confessing her deep hatred for crowded places. Vivian watches Rahel's trembling hands. Shadows of the past loom as Rahel remembers the cruel whispers labeling her a traitor's child. Rahel looks away with a troubled expression, but Vivian remains by her side with a look of concern. Vivian believes she can help Rahel. She strikes a confident pose and tells her lady to put all her trust in her. Voices express shock at a climb. Vivian leads Rahel and the knights through the woods, teasing the men for looking weak and asking if they missed their breakfast. She cheerily suggests they ask for more bread, while the knights look on with growing dread. The knights turn pale as they imagine the Duke's reaction to such an improper request. The Duke's intimidating presence looms in their minds as he questions the propriety of his knights asking for more bread because they are tired. The terrified knights quickly reject it. They regain their resolve and enthusiastically follow Vivian's lead as Rahel watches silently. Vivian reaches a tall tree on a hill and calls out to Rahel, promising a view of the entire village, while the knights pant in exhaustion. Vivian points toward the horizon as Rahel catches up to her at the summit. Rahel's eyes fill with sparkling wonder. Vivian proudly presents the stunning view of the bustling village nestled in the valley. Rahel gazes at the distant houses with a soft expression of awe. A look of pure amazement follows. The wind catches Rahel's hair as she finally realizes she has truly stepped beyond the estate's walls. Vivian throws herself onto the grass with a joyful cry while Rahel asks what she is doing. Vivian smiles mischievously from the grass. Vivian begins rolling down the FUP. She continues her descent with a long, happy shout of Kya! Vivian comes to a sudden stop. She pops back up with joy. Rahel looks down in surprise while a worried knight reaches out to help the energetic girl. Children in the estate were always refined. Rahel reflects on her previous polite behavior. Vivian runs wildly like an untamed colt. She seems like a totally innocent child. Rahel considers the pink-haired girl quite strange. Vivian cheerily brushes herself off with a series of quick tap-tap sounds. Rahel silently watches her eccentric playmate. Vivian invites the lady to enjoy the soft grass, but Rahel flatly declines. Vivian insists that rolling around is fun. The two girls overlook the peaceful village. Vivian points out the fruit shop with its distinctive red roof. She continues pointing out the bookstore and the restaurant to the silent lady. Vivian's eyes sparkle with excitement. Rahel wonders why this child manages to shine so brightly. A stain marks the hem of the girl's dress. Rahel is startled by a sudden light touch. Vivian stands atop the hill with a triumphant grin. Rahel stares up in wide-eyed shock. Vivian appears in a vision of village life. Rahel envies the freedom the other girl possesses. Vivian seems to own this entire small world. Vivian excitedly points at the beautiful setting sun while Rahel admits her jealousy. Rahel watches the golden light fade. The carriage travels home through the woods. Inside the coach, Vivian asks if the lady enjoyed their small village tour. Rahel offers only a cold, heavy silence. Vivian laughs to herself, noting that she specifically chose a secluded spot for the lady's comfort. A hand reaches out to touch hair. Rahel checks the placement of a hair accessory. Vivian wonders if she is being summoned. Rahel gently places a leaf onto Vivian's tag. Vivian recoils in shock, demanding to know what is happening. Vivian realizes with horror that the knights were laughing at the leaf in her hair the whole time. She screams in frustration, asking why she wasn't warned about the leaf earlier. Rahel tells her to be grateful she found out before seeing the Duke. Vivian is stunned by the rare sight of Rahel smiling. She dismisses the idea as impossible, looking at their reflection in the carriage window. Vivian reminds the lady that dinner with the Duke is the next challenge. The carriage arrives at the mansion as Vivian shudders with a sudden wave of nerves. A tense silence dominates the dinner table. Vivian observes the cold atmosphere between Rahel and her grandfather. She worries that the stress of the dinner will give her indigestion. Vivian realizes she is currently more popular with the gatekeeper than the residents. Vivian breaks the silence by thanking the Duke for the wonderful village outing. The Duke asks where they went, and Vivian explains they visited the nearby hill. She justifies the hill as the most efficient way to see the town and still be on time for dinner. Vivian privately hopes the Duke will ask for his granddaughter's opinion. Vivian boldly invites the Duke to join them next time, but he remains non-committal. The suffocating silence returns to the room. Vivian resolves to help Rahel bond with her only family to end her gloominess. Vivian eats while resolving to discover why Rahel and her grandfather are so distant. A man rushes into the dining room, calling out to the dupe. The servant stammers out a nervous apology for the sudden interruption. He reports that an inspector from the imperial palace has arrived at the villa. 3 silhouetted figures approach a bakery in the middle of the night. Dias Hessen informs the visitors that the shop is closed for the day. The knight asks if he is Dias Hessen, the father of Vivian Hessen. Dias wonders in alarm if they have discovered Vivian's true identity. The knight repeats his inquiry, seeking confirmation of the baker's name. Dias grows increasingly anxious, fearing for his daughter's safety. 3 men in red imperial uniforms stand inside the small shop. The lead knight demands to know if the man is indeed Dias Hessen. Dias cautiously asks the knight what brings him to the shop. A sharp knife is concealed behind the baker's back. Curtis Rohan identifies himself and asks if Vivian is currently at home. Tense silence hangs in the air as Dias clenches his hand. Curtis mentions Vivian's role as a playmate and says he has questions to ask. Dias feels relieved they aren't targeting her, but remains wary of them catching on. He adjusts the weapon hidden behind his back with a quiet sound. Dias begins to say she isn't home just as a bell rings. Vivian bursts through the door with a cheerful shout that she is back. Dias is left in a state of comical despair. Vivian stops in her tracks, wondering what is happening in the shop. She notes the presence of several big and scary-looking men. Vivian imagines the knights are thugs trying to extort her father. Curtis looks down at the girl and asks if she is Vivian. Vivian observes his false smile and remembers her father's warning about such people. She confirms her name while the knight identifies his group's imperial orders. The pink-haired girl suddenly recognizes the crest on the man's uniform. A close-up reveals the detailed crest of the imperial palace. Vivian remembers her father showing her a drawing of that same crest. In a flashback, Dias warns her that bad nobles will punish her without cause. A father's gentle embrace comforts his young daughter in the past. The narrative shifts back to the events of Valhalla. Rahel notices the Duke's stiff expression upon hearing the inspector has arrived. Vivian realizes the knights are actually there to spy on her friend Rahel. Curtis asks the young girl if she would mind stepping outside to talk. Diaz interrupts the request with a sudden, sharp thud. The white-haired man stares intensely at the imperial light. Vivian grabs onto her father's arm with a look of concern. Curtis scoffs, asking if they truly think a knight would kidnap a child. Diaz puts a hand on Vivian's head and asks for understanding regarding a parent's feelings. A dark atmosphere surrounds a sudden, sharp call for attention. Curtis warns that his words are imperial orders and disobeying is treason. Vivian worries that her father will certainly lose if a fight breaks out. She recalls that her father is a total dummy who doesn't know how to fight. Vivian steps forward and asks the knight what he wants to talk about. Curtis is smug, believing he has finally reached the girl's playmate. Vivian's eyes flash with a sharp and knowing golden light. She smirks, planning to show the knights how draining it is to talk to a child. Diaz asks why the knights don't simply ask the lady their questions directly, as Vivian watches in surprise. The knights hesitate, struggling to find a response. One knight explains he isn't on good terms with the lady, making it awkward to ask her directly. Shocked voices cry out, wondering why the lady isn't on good terms with His Majesty. Vivian gasps in horror as the knight stammers that the reason for the tension between them is... He quickly shifts his tone, praising His Majesty's benevolence and claiming he is just curious about the lady's health. Vivian considers the explanation, thinking it sounds like a pretty plausible excuse. Vivian cheekily asks why the knights aren't curious about her own well-being. She tugs on her father's sleeve, wondering if the Emperor isn't curious about how they are doing in the village. The knight insists he is curious and asks how she has been and if she is getting along with the lady. Vivian smirks, realizing he is trying to sneak Rahel into the conversation, and prepares her final move. She boasts about fighting neighborhood kids and becoming the boss of the alley. The knight frantically asks if the lady accompanied her to a haunted house in the woods. Vivian notes the lady wasn't in the village then, leaving the frustrated knights to wonder why she's telling them this. The young girl begins to tear up. Vivian pouts, declaring she won't tell them anything since they only care about her friend. The knight finally asks the real question. Has she ever seen the lady use magic? History recounts that the first emperor of the Hildian Empire was a legendary mage. Strong mana was passed down through generations, and the descendant with the greatest power inherited the throne. Occasionally, some descendants chose to rebel against that system. One of those rebels was Rahel's father, the former prince. Driven by a craving for the throne, he was executed for plotting treason. Since that day, the emperor has maintained a constant watch on Rahel. He fears the girl who inherited imperial power might start a rebellion just like her father did. A dark, heavy gloom settles over the scene. Vivian claims she has never seen anything like magic, despite the knight's plea for her to think seriously. A hand reaches out as Diaz tells the knight that is enough. The silver-haired man stares down the knight, stating he won't get the answers he wants from a 9-year-old. The knight glares back, warning the baker to watch his mouth about the day's events. The knight looks closely at Diaz, noting he looks familiar and asking if they have met before. Diaz smiles and calmly replies that he thinks this is the first time they have ever seen each other. Vivian watches her father, thinking it's strange since his face isn't exactly common. Diaz leads Vivian away, telling her it's time to go as they leave the shop behind. Diaz kneels and tells Vivian they should avoid the Duke's estate for a while, which she agrees with. Vivian worries the Emperor might suspect her since she appeared right when she became Rahel's playmate. She throws a tantrum about how hard she worked to get that friend spot. A sudden idea strikes the young girl. Vivian runs off while her father calls out to ask about dinner. She sprints through the bakery and heads toward the stairs. Vivian resolves to find a way to clear the Duke's suspicions. Rahel sits by a window, thinking about how annoying the situation has become. She looks outside, certain that the new girl would be just like all the others she's known. A sense of disappointment washes over her. Rahel remembers a girl making excuses about a new sibling to avoid visiting her estate. A woman informs a young Rahel that no one comes because she is the child of a traitor. The woman comforts the child, promising that she and Sally will stay by her side forever. Her hand slams the red book shut with a sharp tuck as she decides not to expect anything from anyone. She remembers Vivian's bright, happy smile when she said she liked her. Rahel stares at the bookshelves, telling herself she knew the girl would leave soon enough. She grips the book tightly, wondering why she feels so incredibly annoyed. Startled by a sudden knocking at the door, the black-haired girl looks back from her seat. Her eyes widen as she hears a muffled voice calling for Vivian. Hoping it's her new friend, the girl wonders if Vivian has come back to visit. With a quick click, the door swings open to reveal a child in a red dress.
The freckled girl asks if she was reading, but the black-haired girl offers only a cold stare. Noticing the heavy mood, the companion suggests taking a break from studies.
She playfully offers to play house or with dolls, but the black-haired girl remains silent and unresponsive.
Shocked by the dismissive silence, the freckled girl watches as her lady simply puts a book away.
Frustration boils over as she realizes the girl's coldness has reached a new extreme.
She inwardly seethes, blaming Vivian for the sudden and annoying change in her lady's behavior.
The freckled girl claims that life is better without that noisy country girl disturbing their peace. The black-haired girl snaps back, defending Vivian's friendliness and calling out the companion's predictable spite. She abruptly orders the freckled girl to leave the room immediately.
Stunned by the harsh dismissal, the companion asks for clarification.
The air grows cold as the girl repeats her demand for silence and solitude.
Heavy footsteps echo through the garden as the freckled girl storms away in a huff. Trembling with uncontrollable rage, she stops in the middle of the courtyard. With a sharp thud, she vents her anger by kicking a potted plant. A loud crash rings out as the pottery shatters against the ground. She stands over the mess, her face contorted with jealousy and spite.
She screams about Vivian's attempts to seduce the person destined to be her husband.
In a flashback, a woman tells a young girl that her lady will eventually become a man and marry her. The woman insists she must stay close to the young master to secure her future. Back in the present, she vows that no matter what happens, she will be the one to marry her lord. A man in a red uniform suddenly appears behind her, calling out to get her attention.
He looms over her, asking for more details about the marriage she just mentioned.
Startled, she turns to face the intimidating stranger who overheard her secret. He smirks, demanding to know how a young lady could possibly grow up to be a husband. Night falls over the estate, casting a quiet glow over the landscape. The butler informs the Duke that the imperial investigators plan to leave in 2 days. The Duke expresses surprise at their short stay, considering the distance they traveled. He acknowledges that while their mission was ostensibly to check on the lady, it was actually surveillance. A sharp tap sounds as he ponders why the investigators are withdrawing so abruptly. He remembers a dying woman's plea for him to protect her son, the hidden Prince Rahides. Lost in thought, the Duke remains silent as he reflects on his heavy responsibility. Feeling the weight of the situation, he orders the butler to increase the villa's security. The butler presents a file containing the information requested regarding Vivian and her father. The Duke notes the suspicious timing of the child's entry into the mansion. Despite his own involvement in bringing her there, he remains cautious about her true intentions. He begins reviewing the report, determined to confirm every detail about the girl's background. The document identifies D.S. Hessen as a 29-year-old baker with an amicable reputation. It notes his wife passed away years ago, and that his past before the village remains a mystery. The butler reports that the imperial knights were seen visiting the bakery on the day of their arrival. The Duke looks up from the papers, asking if any other suspicious activity was observed. With a quick thud, the butler places a pink notebook titled Bybee's Property on the desk. He explains that the child herself provided this analysis of the imperial knight's behavior. The Duke is left speechless by the idea that a 9-year-old would conduct such surveillance. The butler asks the young pink-haired girl why she wanted to provide this report to the Duke. Vivian stands proudly in the hallway, looking thrilled to have completed her secret mission. The butler offers a warm smile, clearly amused and impressed by the girl's cleverness. The Duke flips through the pages of a small pink notebook with an amused expression. A child's drawing depicts a tall, white-haired man, a small pink-haired girl, and 3 red-uniformed knights of varying sizes. The notebook contains a drawing of the knights questioning a child hidden behind a bush near a general store. He chuckles softly to himself. The butler observes the Duke reading, noting that the pink-haired girl is exceptionally quick-witted and adept at handling difficult situations. A smile spreads across the Duke's face as he keeps reviewing the notebook. The scene shifts to the estate courtyard on the following morning. Vivian runs through the garden. The pink-haired girl sprints forward with a bright, hopeful smile on her face. She spots Rahel walking away in the distance and identifies her immediately. She stops suddenly in her tracks. Vivian's cheerful expression falters into confusion when she realizes Rahel is walking away without acknowledging her. She wonders if the black-haired girl failed to hear her as she picks up the pace again. Catching up to her friend, the pink-haired girl calls out to get her attention. The black-haired girl pauses and turns back with a distant and cold expression. She asks Vivian why she returned and questions if she only came back to say a final goodbye.
Rahel accuses Vivian of being afraid of her and the consequences of associating with the child of a traitor. Vivian realizes this is the reason why all of the black-haired girl's previous friends abandoned her. She understands that Rahel's anger stems from the fear that she was being left behind once again. Rahel looks away, her face clouded with a deep, silent hurt.
Vivian reflects on how Rahel, despite her future as a villainess, is currently just a lonely child terrified of being forgotten. She resolves to prove that she is not afraid and has no intention of ever leaving her side. As Rahel begins to walk away, Vivian reaches out to stop her.
The black-haired girl stops as Vivian stares at her with wide, concerned eyes. Vivian decides that even if her friend moves away, she will simply close the distance and stay near. Training dummies stand in the courtyard. Vivian watches from the side as her friend continues to walk toward the training area. A sharp, rhythmic thud echoes as a wooden sword strikes a target. Rahel practices her swordsmanship with intense focus while Vivian watches her from a nearby bench. The black-haired girl grits her teeth, sweat and determination visible on her face as she pushes herself. Vivian watches with growing concern, worrying that Rahel might accidentally hurt herself by training so aggressively. Rahel swings the heavy wooden sword with all her might. With a sudden, sharp crack, the wooden sword shatters against the training dummy, leaving Rahel stunned. Terrified for her friend, the pink-haired girl jumps up from her seat and rushes toward her. Vivian frantically asks if she is all right, noticing a small trail of blood on Rahel's cheek. Startled by the sudden closeness, Rahel pushes the other girl away and orders her to leave. A tense silence follows as the two girls stare at each other in shock. Rahel sprints away as Vivian calls out, desperate to explain her intentions and tend to the wound. A look of fierce determination crosses Vivian's face as she vows never to abandon her friend. Suddenly, a sharp, heavy thump seizes Vivian's heart, causing her to gasp in agony. Gasping for breath, she forces herself to keep moving so she can catch up to Rahel. The pain intensifies, feeling like a heavy burden crushing her chest as she struggles to stay upright. She realizes that accepting the system's power would stop the pain, but she refuses to use Rahel for selfish gain. Vivian firmly rejects the easy path, choosing to endure the pain rather than exploit her friend's scars. She exhales deeply, her breath coming in ragged, labored hitches. She continues to push forward through the darkness, telling herself she must hurry before Rahel is gone. A heavy, oppressive atmosphere descends. Vivian's strength finally gives out, and she begins to collapse onto the ground. The sound of running feet approaches quickly from the side. Rahel returns and lifts the unconscious girl onto her back to carry her to safety. Rahel sprints forward, desperately carrying the unconscious pink-haired girl toward help. The black-haired girl reflects on her desire to end their friendship before it began. Rahel fears that associating with a traitor's child will eventually lead to her own ruin. An oppressive sense of regret lingers in the silent air. Rahel suddenly stops walking away as a wave of hesitation washes over her. She turns back with a look of deep confliction and worry. Vivian remains motionless on the ground, her long pink hair spread out. The atmosphere grows dark as a traumatic memory begins to surface. A sudden, loud shatter rings out as a porcelain teacup breaks on the floor. A young Rahel screams for her mother as worried maids rush through the door. The black-haired child cries out in agony over her mother's dying body. Back in the present, Vivian lies collapsed and unresponsive on the floor. Rahel rushes toward her friend's side, screaming Vivian's name in a panic. She begs for the girl to wake up and open her eyes. Rahel offers to be abandoned if only Vivian will survive and leave her side. Sir Brian bursts into the room, calling out to his young lady in alarm. Brian asks what happened as Rahel desperately calls for the doctor's help. Rahel whispers a desperate plea for him to save the unconscious girl. Tears stream down Rahel's face as she begs the doctor for help. Brian recalls that Rahel hasn't shown this much emotion since her mother's death. He remembers how Rahel stood cold and tearless during his mother's funeral service. The doctor feels a sense of relief mixed with fear at Rahel's sudden emotional outburst. A situation that triggers his deep-seated trauma is considered extremely dangerous. Sir Brian sets his heavy medical bag down with a quick thud. Brian notes Vivian's complexion and prepares to conduct a thorough medical examination. The doctor gently takes the pink-haired girl's wrist to check her vitals. A series of quick, rhythmic taps sound against the wooden door. The nanny enters the room to announce the start of etiquette lessons. She stops in surprise as she notices the doctor and the unconscious child. Sir Brian explains that Vivian collapsed suddenly despite having no visible injuries. The nanny inwardly smirks, seeing a way to use this crisis to her advantage. She suggests Rahel leave to rest, but the girl firmly refuses to move. Rahel's gaze turns cold as she insists on staying until the examination is over. The nanny agrees to postpone the lesson, and Rahel offers a brief thanks.
Walking away, the nanny seethes with rage that Rahel defied her for Vivian. She glances back through the door, plotting a way to remove the nuisance.
She decides this is the perfect opportunity to finally drive Vivian out of the mansion. A flashback reveals the events following the death of Rahel's mother 5 years ago. A small, isolated Rahel sits alone in the middle of a massive room. The nanny warns the child that everyone will turn against her if she leaves. She claims the Duke will discard Rahel if her true identity as a male is discovered.
The nanny promises to stay by his side forever to protect his secret.
In the present, the woman walks away, focused on her goal of controlling Rahel.
She notes that cross-dressing can only hide Rahel's true gender for so long.
The Duke is aware of this and secretly has his son train in magic.
Rahel is destined to eventually cast aside the disguise and lead as a duke.
The nanny envisions a future where she stands alongside the powerful young lord.
She decides that the commoner girl has become too much of a nuisance to ignore. Vivian is seen bowing respectfully before the tall and intimidating Duke Kels.
The nanny fumes over how easily the girl managed to win over the arrogant Duke. Margaret looks out the window, noting that Vivian even managed to take Rahel outside the mansion. She smirks, planning to use the child's sickly nature as an excuse to send her away. 3 quick knocks sound as Margaret requests a moment of the Duke's time. The Duke looks up from his desk and asks if the child playmate suddenly collapsed. Margaret lets out a weary sigh, explaining that she allowed Rahel to stay by the girl's side for now. Looking concerned, she tells the Duke that she certainly hopes this isn't a serious case. She suggests that if the child has contracted an illness, it might cause Rahel great distress. He lets out a thoughtful hum and admits she makes a valid point. The Duke recalls how a young Rahel already understands the harsh concept of death. He worries that if Vivian were to die, it would undoubtedly devastate the black-haired child. Silence fills the office as the Duke remains deep in thought while the butler and Margaret wait. A dark, triumphant smirk spreads across Margaret's face as her plan begins to take root. Vivian lies unconscious and pale in a large, ornate bed. Her eyes flutter open as she wonders what happened and where she is. She realizes she has never seen this ceiling before and wonders why she is lying down. Vivian remembers the sudden pain in her heart before everything went black as Rahel ran away. Suddenly sitting up, she panics and frantically asks what happened to Rahel. An exclamation point appears as her attention is caught by a sudden movement beside her. Vivian stops in shock as she sees Rahel sitting right next to the bed. The 2 girls stare at each other in a tense, silent moment of surprise. Bolting upright, Rahel desperately asks if the pink-haired girl is finally okay. Vivian apologizes her and tries to downplay her condition as a non-serious illness. She covers her mouth in horror, realizing she just confessed to hiding her illness from everyone. I'm doomed, she thinks, worried that the Duke and Rahel will reject her for being sickly. Vivian is terrified by Rahel's dark expression, fearing she is angry about the secret. She quickly explains that it was her first time fainting, and the pain usually vanishes after 20 minutes. Rahel asks with a tremble if Vivian was already in pain before even approaching her. Vivian panics, fearing she will lose her status as a friend for showing contempt of court.
A voice asks why she didn't say she was hurting.
Vivian gasps in surprise, looking at her friend with wide, sparkling eyes. With tears in her eyes, Rahel cries out that Vivian was dying because of her. A vision of a cold-blooded adult villainess appears, but it is noted as a story for the distant future. Vivian looks at Rahel and sees only a child with a pure heart worrying for a friend.
She realizes that Rahel is no longer just a character in a novel. She is a true friend.
Reaching out, the pink-haired girl gently asks if her friend has something to tell her. Their hands meet in a soft, meaningful grasp as Rahel reaches back. Vivian looks at the other girl with a hopeful and bright expression.
Rahel stares back with wide blue eyes, looking touched by the gesture.
She reflects that if a friend is being treated unfairly, you don't run away. The 2 children sit together peacefully, surrounded by white flowers. Rahel looks away for a moment, her long black hair tied in a ponytail. A sharp double knock sounds at the bedroom door.
Rahel turns toward the door as the butler asks if they may enter for a moment.
The heavy door creaks open as the butler leads Margaret into the room.
Vivian is stunned, wondering why those 2 are coming in together and if she will be scolded.
The butler explains that it is all thanks to the young lady calling the doctor so quickly. Vivian notices a wicked smirk on Margaret's face and immediately gets a bad feeling. The butler suggests that, just to be safe, it is best if Vivian rests at home for a while. Startled, Vivian asks if that means she shouldn't come to the mansion for the time being.
She realizes that while he sounds kind, he is actually trying to separate her from Rahel. Vivian realizes why the nanny was comforted.
The pink-haired girl pauses and got. She hopes her condition ensures her state. The two girls share a quiet moment. Diagnosing mana-related illnesses requires rare magical expertise. Brian excitedly announces a medical discovery. Brian apologizes for his urgent, sudden interruption. Brian confirms Vivian's illness is not contagious. The doctor prepares to reveal his findings. Vivian joyfully celebrates her good medical luck. Margaret seethes over Vivian's unexpected good fortune. The Duke confirms the mana overload diagnosis. They decide to hide Rahel's true nature. The Duke ponders their beneficial coincidental meeting. The mansion hides a secret mana source. Vivian unknowingly becomes the Duke's chosen tool. The Duke finds the overlapping coincidences suspicious. The Duke questions the butler about Rahel. Vivian was meant only as a distraction. Her attention is taken by a sudden creak. The Duke spots something interesting outside. The Duke observes Diaz doting on Vivian. The Duke finds the man's face familiar. The Duke struggles to place Diaz's face. He searches his memories for a connection. A memory of a specific man resurfaces. The Duke realizes a potentially dangerous resemblance. The Duke remains cautious despite his debts. The Duke orders a background check on Diaz. A sudden, heavy rumble sounds as they depart. Vivian feels relief over the day's outcome. Vivian experiences a moment of pure joy. Vivian vows to bring Rahel lasting happiness. Vivian feels a sudden, intense pace. Diaz is overwhelmed by his daughter's vow. Vivian jokes about her own accidental term. Vivian notices her father's genuine emotional distress. Vivian reflects on her father's lonely past. Her head is comforted by a gentle patting. Vivian reaches out to comfort her father. The daughter offers a warm, reassuring embrace. Vivian promises her father a long life. Diaz agrees to her promise with affection. Vivian ignores her father's tears for him. Vivian hides her own rising emotions. Vivian resolves to change their tragic fate. Life returns to normal with one difference. Rahel's arrival is marked by a quick putter. Rahel stubbornly denies missing her pink-haired friend. The two friends continue their playful bickering. Vivian happily asks what is happening. The black-haired girl tells Vivian to enter the manor instead of the greenhouse. A cheerful maid claims the black-haired girl was shyly waiting for Vivian. Vivian excitedly asks about their play plans, while the other girl admits she has none. Vivian enthusiastically suggests they go visit the library. The pink-haired girl takes a hand. The black-haired girl flinches in surprise. Vivian panics, wondering what she has done. Their hands remain joined in silence. Vivian worries her friend might pull away. The butler arrives to greet Vivian. Vivian greets him, and the butler asks how she is feeling. He expresses happiness regarding her health. The butler calls out to Vivian. He informs her that the Duke is currently looking for her. Vivian looks at him with confusion. Duke Cowles relaxes with hot tea. Vivian sits across from the Duke. Vivian nervously sips her own tea. Putting down his cup, the Duke asks what she thinks the Emperor thinks of Rachel. Vivian explains that her ladyship told her a little about the matter yesterday. The Duke insists on knowing what she knew before that. Vivian admits that she has actually sent a report to the Duke once before. She recalls 3 knights asking her if her ladyship was well and if she used magic. Realizing the Duke is no pushover, Vivian decides honesty is better than a lie. Vivian admits she already knew because she overheard adults in the village talking about it. The Duke then asks what she thinks of His Majesty, the Emperor. Vivian is stunned by the sudden question. She wonders if she is allowed to badmouth the Emperor in this house. Vivian worries that insulting the country's ruler will make her look bad. She questions if the Duke wants honesty. Vivian tells the Duke she is not sure since she has never met the Emperor. The Duke tells her he did not call her here for such a lukewarm answer. Vivian explains she was taught not to judge others based only on what people say. Vivian feels a surge of determination. She states her strong desire to stay by her ladyship's side. A shimmering blue jewel catches light. The Duke gives a subtle smirk. The Duke says he likes those with convictions and has enough dogs wagging their tails. Vivian stares back at him silently. He describes wanting someone intelligent with a mind of their own to stop his mistakes. The Duke admits that in that regard, she has made quite an impression on him. Vivian lets out a shocked gasp. He tells her to become someone useful both to him and eventually to Rachel. The Duke says this means daily lessons at the villa and asks if she dislikes that. A sudden loud bang sounds as Vivian stands. Vivian enthusiastically vows to work her absolute hardest. A sudden, quick thud sounds outside. Vivian jumps and yells out, "Wah!" She celebrates her success with joy. Vivian beams with absolute joy. The black-haired girl questions Vivian's actions, causing her to shout out in surprise. Vivian's feet move with a quick catter. Vivian leaps into a warm hug. Vivian excitedly shares the news of her sponsorship and their daily study plans. Vivian notices the black-haired girl's face is unusually red while she blushes. Vivian gently touches her friend's face. Rahel flinches as Vivian draws near. Her friend requests space, making Vivian worry about being too physically close. Vivian apologizes for getting carried away by her immense happiness.
Rahel looks away in silent thought.
Vivian asks if her friend was waiting, and the girl suggests the library.
Rahel tentatively holds out her hand.
Vivian is stunned that her friend took the lead in reaching out first. The black-haired girl shyly offers an out if Vivian doesn't want to hold hands. Vivian's hand moves with a firm rasp. The friends share a soft smile. Vivian reflects on the ticklish feeling of their intertwined hands. A grand castle stands under moon. The emperor questions if the child is a son rather than a daughter. A soft, sinister laugh sounds from the shadows.
The blonde emperor lets out a maniacal laugh that fills the room.
The seated ruler remains imposing. The subordinate breaks into nervous sweat. The emperor notes a striking resemblance to a certain father figure. He reflects on how much the person resembled their father. A memory surfaces of his jealous attempt to kill his superior brother. The emperor feels immediate regret as his brother collapses from the poison. He recalls his brother's selflessness before the former ruler, causing deep remorse. He seethes with regret over not ensuring his brother's death. The emperor vows to eliminate his brother. A grim guillotine looms in shadow. He sits triumphantly upon a blood-stained throne he seized himself. The door bursts open as a servant reports Lady Acella's return. The emperor suspects the child's paternity and demands more information. A sudden, sharp thump sounds as the emperor resolves to investigate personally. Carriages travel quickly down the road. Driven by intense anxiety, the emperor arrives at the duke's estate. The emperor is stunned as he recognizes his brother's face at a glance. He realizes the child is his brother's heir, haunted by a bloody specter. He dismisses the girl's threat while a ghostly voice whispers from behind. The blood-stained specter of his brother demands to know why he was killed. The emperor screams in terror, begging the ghost to stay away. The brother's specter begins to haunt the emperor regularly. Despite her being a girl, the emperor remains deeply unsettled and anxious. A nervous snap sounds as he curses the child left behind by the ghost. The emperor resolves with cold, murderous eyes to kill the child. Daylight returns to the peaceful estate. The tutor concludes the lesson with a reminder about consistent daily review. Vivian celebrates while Rahel remains focused. A sudden rhythmic tap sounds as the teacher departs. The black-haired girl says they should leave now. Vivian beams with immense pride. A warm, affectionate glow surrounds the friends. Heavy, rhythmic footsteps echo through the hall. Rahel notes that her friend greets people with a lot of energy. Vivian reacts with confusion as Rahel suggests that her friend doesn't actually find the lessons interesting and is just pretending to listen. Vivian shakes her head and insists she finds them interesting, but Rahel calls her a liar. The black-haired girl offers a knowing smile. A diary reveals doodles and personal likes. Panicked, Vivian claims she was reviewing for her art class and mentions that review is more important than a preview. Rahel asks about her dozing off with half-open eyes in philosophy class, making Vivian worry if she was being watched the whole time instead of her friend paying attention to the lesson. Vivian acknowledges that dozing off in class is technically her own fault. The pink-haired girl pleads for silence. Rahel laughs softly, causing Vivian to notice how beautiful her friend's smile is. Vivian reflects on how her friend is even prettier when she smiles. The black-haired girl pauses in quiet thought. Vivian wonders why her friend's expression changed. Vivian spots the Duke and Butler on the stairs and wonders if they are heading out based on their clothing. Rhythmic footsteps sound as the girls approach the Duke and Butler. Vivian greets them, and the Duke asks how their lessons went. Vivian worries that her friend might mention her falling asleep in class. She looks at Rahel with nervous anticipation. A cold, heavy silence fills the hall. Vivian wishes the men a safe trip as they depart. Vivian notes the Duke doesn't look happy and hopes the two can get along since they are family. A sudden, loud clap sounds as Vivian excitedly suggests they go get some snacks. Sunlight bathes a quiet garden gazebo. Vivian enjoys her delicious dessert with joy. A quiet, rhythmic scraping sounds as Rahel picks at her food, causing Vivian to cry out in surprise. Vivian asks her friend if she ever has worries and explains that friends are supposed to share what is in their hearts. She adds that sharing secrets that can't be told to anyone else is how people become closer friends. Rahel claims she has nothing like that, leading Vivian to suspect she has never talked about such things and decides to offer her own example. A long, heavy sigh sounds as Vivian admits she has a worry, prompting a question from Rahel. Vivian explains her father cut off contact with his family because they opposed his marriage, and she confirms it was his side of the family. A sudden, light scratch sounds as Vivian admits her father smiles off questions about her grandparents. She expresses a wish for them to reconnect. Rahel remains silent, looking away thoughtfully. Vivian wonders what her friend is thinking. The untouched cake sits on the table. Rahel says being family doesn't guarantee forgiveness and worries that if the relationship falls apart again, he would be truly hurt. A sudden, quiet nod sounds as Vivian wonders if Rahel is afraid of being rejected by her own grandfather. A sudden, sharp flinch startles the girl. Vivian expresses gladness and tells her friend to come talk to her anytime she has worries in the future. Rahel asks for clarification, and Vivian confirms it because they are friends. Vivian laughs amidst a field of rofus. Rahel is stunned by her friend's piedness. Determination shines in the girl's blue eye. Heavy, rhythmic footsteps sound as a woman approaches the gazebo. A sudden, light whoosh sounds as Rahel prepares to leave. Vivian wonders if her friend's solo class is a lesson for a successor. A sudden, quick nod sounds as Vivian says she will see her friend tomorrow, reflecting on how it is likely magic training mentioned in the original story. Vivian is confused as the nanny fails to follow the departing girl. The brown-haired nanny offers to see Vivian off, and the pink-haired girl wonders if the busy woman should be taken the time. The nanny offers a gentle smile and insists it is no trouble at all. Rhythmic, heavy footsteps sound as the pair walks through the expansive estate gardens. Vivian notices they are taking a path around the outskirts and questions why they are going that way. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the girl's name is called out. The nanny stops and asks if Vivian understands the nature of treason. They stand before the iron gate as the nanny repeats her ominous question. Vivian clarifies her understanding of the crime as insulting the emperor, and the woman confirms her knowledge. The nanny asks if she knows the fate of those guilty, and Vivian notes the emperor delivers severe punishment. A cold, heavy silence follows as the woman explains that 3 generations of the traitor's family are exterminated. The grim description continues with the mention of parents being hanged. The scene shifts to the chilling image of a guillotine where traitors are beheaded. The woman explains that children are sold into slavery, and anyone aiding them faces the same cruel end. Vivian asks why this is being shared, and the nanny reveals Rahel's father committed treason. A sudden, cold whoosh sounds as Vivian is struck by the heavy revelation. The nanny claims she is informing her due to her ignorance, and Vivian realizes this woman drove away Rahel's previous friends. Vivian reflects on how Rahel pushed her away to protect her from the suffering of her family's past. Trembling with a sudden, quiet shake, Vivian realizes the woman intentionally terrified Rahel's companions. Vivian questions why the nanny stays if it puts her and her own daughter in danger. A sudden, light flinch startles the woman as she claims her life is staked on serving Rahel because she is worth the risk. The nanny warns that Vivian is too young to understand and will eventually regret her choice. A sudden, sharp squeeze sounds as Vivian clenches her clothes in determination. A sudden, quick patter sounds as Vivian begins to run away, leaving the nanny confused. A sudden, sharp whoosh sounds as Vivian turns back with a look of intense resolve. A sudden, light whoosh sounds as Vivian declares that she has also staked her life on this. A sudden, sharp grind sounds as the nanny reacts with frustration to the girl's defiance. Vivian turns and walks away from the woman with purposeful steps. Vivian resolves to separate Rahel from the nanny's influence. Heavy, rhythmic footsteps sound as Vivian walks away, certain that hurting Rahel is wrong, regardless of the reason. A sudden, sharp flinch sounds as she considers her next course of action. The scene shifts to a bustling village street filled with people and carriages. In the village, Vivian explains she is buying gifts for the maids, much to Rahel's confusion. Vivian explains that befriending the maids is the key to securing late-night snacks. A sudden, quick whoosh sounds as Rahel turns away, claiming she doesn't need them and that the staff will remain afraid. A sudden, quiet hum sounds as Vivian looks on thoughtfully. She acknowledges that it certainly felt that way in the past. A sudden, light clatter sounds as a nervous maid serves them, and Vivian realizes Rahel needs allies within the estate. Vivian reassures her friend at a doorway, saying people are only scared because they don't know her yet. Vivian beams, explaining that the unknown is always frightening to people. Vivian promises that once people truly know Rahel, their fear will vanish. A sudden, quick patter sounds as Vivian firmly takes her friend's hand. A sudden, light squeeze sounds as they stand together among the flowers. A shopkeeper's son naps soundly at a counter until a sudden, loud snore sounds. Vivian greets him loudly, causing Peter to wake with a sudden, sharp cough.
Peter jumps up with a sudden, loud thud and offers a flustered oakum.
Peter is startled and threatens to tell Vivian's mother about her antics. Peter claims he was meditating rather than sleeping, but Vivian mocks his snoring. Peter tries to ignore the teasing and asks what they are looking for while staring at Rahel. Peter leans in and whispers, asking Vivian if the girl with her is truly the young lady. Rahel confirms her resolve as a sudden, light crinkle sounds. A sudden, sharp whoosh sounds as Rahel pulls Vivian away, leaving the pink-haired girl wondering if she dislikes strangers. While browsing, Vivian excitedly points out a popular item to her friend. Vivian introduces Peter as her friend, catching Rahel off guard. Rahel looks displeased and asks if Peter is also her friend, making Vivian nervous. A sudden, rhythmic vibration sounds as Rahel asks if Vivian likes the boy too, and Vivian confirms their friendship. A dark aura surrounds Rahel as she reacts with visible frustration to the mention of another friend. Blushing deeply, Rahel expresses a desire to have the same close relationship. A sudden, light whoosh sounds as Rahel asks to be addressed by her name, just like the boy. Vivian is startled by her friend's sudden insistence on a casual address. The pink-haired girl beams with joy, delighted by Rahel's request. A sudden, light puff sounds as Vivian realizes Rahel simply wants to experience typical friendship. Vivian asks for permission to use the casual name and speak more informally while looking at the shop's trinkets. A sudden, loud gasp sounds as Vivian realizes there's no reason to refuse such a request. Vivian laughs happily while Rahel remains a bit embarrassed. Rahel asks about the gifts Vivian is buying and if she has something specific in mind for the maids. Sunlight bathes a lush tree under a clear, blue sky. A sudden, rhythmic rumble sounds as the two girls ride together in the carriage. A sudden, light slide sounds as Vivian begins to doze off. A sudden, quiet mumble sounds as Vivian falls asleep on Rahel's shoulder. A sudden, light snicker sounds as Rahel notices her friend seems to be dreaming of food. Rahel sits quietly in the sun-drenched carriage, watching over her sleeping friend. Rahel reflects on how Vivian was the first person outside her immediate family to reach out to her. A warm glow surrounds the memory of Vivian reaching out to offer her friendship. Rahel recalls the brilliant, sparkling light in her friend's honey-colored eyes. She remembers how soft and warm Vivian's hand felt when they first connected. The scene shifts to a memory of Vivian talking to Peter as Rahel realizes she isn't the only one special to her friend.
Rahel looks out the window, resolving that she doesn't want to be just an ordinary friend.
A sudden, firm squeeze sounds as Rahel takes her friend's hand. Rahel gazes at Vivian with a mix of affection and growing possessiveness. Rahel resolves to be Vivian's one and only special person. Rahel looks down at her friend, wishing to be the most important person in her life. Vivian's earlier words about sharing secrets echo in Rahel's mind. Time passes quietly as the carriage travels through the outskirts. Rahel looks away thoughtfully, wondering if Vivian will stay by her side forever. A sudden, light thud sounds as Rahel considers the risk Vivian took, knowing the Emperor's watchful gaze. Rahel decides to share her true thoughts with Vivian once she wakes up. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the carriage arrives back at the estate. As they walk through the hall, Rahel mentions she has something to tell Vivian later. Vivian asks for the secret now, but Rahel insists on waiting until the pink-haired girl goes home. Rahel hesitates as she notices a maid passing by. Vivian agrees to talk later, respecting her friend's wish. A sudden, sharp click sounds as the girls approach the mansion entrance. Two maids offer a polite welcome to the young lady as a sudden, light bow sounds. Vivian encourages Rahel to follow through with their plan to befriend the staff. Rahel blushes deeply, feeling a wave of shyness as she faces the maids. A sudden, light murmur sounds as the maids react with shock to their lady's greeting. Vivian reminds Rahel to mention the gifts they bought for the staff. A sudden, loud bang sounds as Rahel panics and runs away into the mansion. Vivian calls out to the maids, asking if they have a moment to talk. Vivian beams as the maids ask if she brought them gifts. A variety of expensive cosmetic bottles sit together on the table. Vivian explains to the pair of maids that she brought famous beauty water from town. Vivian holds up a bottle, claiming it makes skin silky smooth after washing. One maid mentions she wanted to buy it, and Vivian says Rahel picked it up. Vivian claims Rahel noted their hard work and felt sorry for earlier, leaving her friend stunned. Touched by the unexpected kindness, the brown-haired maid thanks the young lady profusely. Rahel remains speechless and visibly overwhelmed by her friend's lie. Vivian realizes Rahel never expected her relationship with the staff to change.
A maid notes Vivian needs to retire hair, surprising the pink-haired girl.
Vivian panics as she feels her messy, unkempt hair.
A sudden, quick dash sounds as Vivian runs toward a nearby mirror. Vivian is shocked by her reflection and wonders when her hair became so disheveled. She recalls the long nap she took on Rahel's shoulder in the carriage. The maid offers to help Vivian tie her hair back properly. Rahel tells the maid to go ahead and decides to sit with them as well. Vivian mentions her father brushes her hair for her every single night. The maids are amused, noting men usually find such grooming tasks tedious. Vivian boasts about her father's love, while a maid mentions he'll be upset by a future boyfriend. The maid mentions a boy she might like, causing Rahel to flinch at the thought. Rahel turns away suddenly, leaving Vivian confused by her reaction. Vivian wonders why her friend has such a strange look on her face. She recalls Rahel's earlier jealousy regarding her friendship with Peter. Vivian considers how sensitive young girls can be about the concept of best friends. Vivian loudly declares she will never have a boyfriend because they aren't any fun. She complains that boys only play pranks and she hates being teased. The maid finishes the hair and asks if she intends to never marry. Vivian vows to live with her father and Rahel forever. Vivian asks Rahel if she will also be her friend for a very long time. A heavy, somber mood settles over Rahel as she looks down. The sun sets in a brilliant orange glow over the grand estate. The black-haired man works diligently at his desk in the quiet study. He gazes at a calendar on his desk showing the month of May. He reflects on how the anniversary of Izel's death is approaching. He remembers his late daughter bringing him flowers when she was a little girl. 5 years have passed since his daughter left this world. The man stands up from his desk with a heavy, tired sigh. He walks slowly through the silent, expansive study. He believes he will carry the weight of this pain for the rest of his life. He stops as he hears Vivian's voice outside and wonders if she is still there. He notes the villa is noisy again, just like when Izel was still alive. He frowns and turns away, dismissing his thoughts as foolish. He resolves that no one can ever replace the daughter he lost. Dusk falls upon the quiet trees outside the mansion windows. He notices the silence and wonders if Vivian has finally gone home. A sudden, light knock sounds at the heavy study door. He wonders why the girl has come to see him at this hour. Vivian enters, greeting him as Your Majesty and thanking him for his fun. He asks why she isn't at lessons, and she explains she has a gift for him. Vivian offers him a wrapped gift box with a bright, hopeful smile. A sudden rhythmic rustle sounds as Vivian explains she bought the gift in town earlier, but only now found the time to give it to him. A sudden, sharp click sounds as the Duke opens the wooden box to reveal its contents. A wooden bookmark rests on decorative paper. A sudden, sharp spark sounds as the Duke notes he hasn't done anything for her lately and wonders about the sudden gift. A sudden, light clap sounds as Vivian explains she saw the item while shopping for gifts for the maids and thought of him. A sudden, light thud sounds as the Duke teases that she felt forced to buy it because she thought he'd sulk, which Vivian quickly denies. A sudden, quiet chuckle sounds as the Duke finds her reaction amusing. Looking at the bookmark, the Duke compliments her for having a good eye for items. Blushing slightly, Vivian happily accepts the compliment. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Vivian asks if she can read books with him, explaining her teacher said books reveal a person's character. When the Duke asks why she wants to know more about him, Vivian earnestly expresses her desire to become close with him. A sudden, light slide sounds as the Duke tells the girl that if she states what she wants, he might grant it. A sudden, heavy gulp sounds as Vivian prepares to make her request. Vivian stands resolute amidst a flurry of white roses. A sudden, light blink sounds as the Duke waits for her to speak. The Duke is baffled by Vivian's request to be friends. A sudden, light laugh sounds as Vivian explains she wants to be friends because he seems like a kind person. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Vivian recalls her philosophy teacher saying that having a good friend is like living another life. A sudden, tired sigh sounds as the Duke wonders if her head got heavier after attending those classes. A sudden, light snap sounds as Vivian points out she already has many friends who are the same age as the Duke. A sudden, quiet snicker sounds as the Duke finds it hard to believe she's made friends with others his age. The Duke smiles and finally agrees to her request. A sudden, bright chime sounds as Vivian beams with pure joy. Lush green leaves shimmer under the sunlight as time passes. A sudden, quiet chirp sounds as a bird perches on a branch, marking the days Vivian visited the Duke. A sudden, light clink sounds as Vivian thanks the Duke for the snacks during their meeting. A sudden rhythmic munch sounds as Vivian happily eats a cupcake, feeling confident that the Duke likes her. A sudden quiet slide sounds as Vivian asks what they should talk about, mentioning a book she read about life being a series of regrets. A sudden quiet chuckle sounds as the Duke is impressed that a 9-year-old is reading such profound books. A sudden light chirp sounds as the Duke asks if she has ever truly regretted anything, and she admits she has. Vivian looks off to the side with a somber expression. A sudden quiet chirp sounds as Vivian begins the story of going to the forest with her father. Her silver-haired father once found an orphaned baby bird that had lost its mother. A sudden quiet chirp sounds as young Vivian and her father observe the bird in its nest. A sudden light flap sounds as they wave goodbye to the bird as it flies away into the trees. A somber mood falls as Vivian recalls finding the bird dead in front of their house, likely bitten by a snake. The Duke realizes she regrets returning the bird to the forest, and Vivian sadly agrees, wishing she'd kept it safe. The Duke explains that good intentions don't always yield good results, but insists it isn't her fault. He continues that leaving was the bird's own choice, while Vivian listens quietly. Vivian processes his words with a thoughtful look. An empty birdcage stands by the window. The Duke suggests that even in a cage, the bird might have resented her. A sudden light gesture sounds as the Duke tells her to focus on what actually happened rather than hypotheticals. He explains that the bird lived well by her side and surely enjoyed its freedom in the forest. The Duke advises letting go of the past, as the bird wouldn't want her trapped in it. A sudden sharp halt sounds as Vivian thanks him and then asks if he has ever regretted anything himself. Vivian gazes at the Duke with an inquisitive look. A sudden quiet pause sounds as the Duke looks thoughtful. A sudden light huff sounds as the Duke asks if she knows he once had a daughter. Vivian asks if he means the lady's mother, and the Duke confirms he is talking about that child. The black-haired man reflects on his desire to provide his daughter with the most valuable things in the world. A blonde man offers a simple bouquet of pink flowers. The black-haired woman cherishes the small, ordinary gift. The Duke realizes he mistakenly equated forceful control with love while making choices for her. A sudden loud bang sounds as the daughter begs her father to save a man named Leofried. A sudden sharp snap sounds as the Duke refuses her request, fearing they would be branded as traitors. A sudden heavy thud sounds as the Duke demands she forget Leofried, leaving her in despair. A sudden tight squeeze sounds as the daughter hides the news of her pregnancy from her father. A sudden quick dash sounds as the daughter finally leaves her father's side to protect her unborn baby. The Duke reflects on his past selfish desires alone in his grand study. A sudden sharp creak sounds as he clenches his fist while mourning the years that have passed. He recalls his daughter looking frail and ill while caring for a young Rahel. He wonders if things would be different had he simply respected her wishes. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as he clasps his hands in deep, silent sorrow. He laments that a terrible disease might never have taken his daughter. He admits he still feels deep regret for that day. Vivian considers that the lady's mother likely resented being forced into her father's choices. A sudden light slide sounds as the Duke wonders if such overbearing behavior is natural for fathers. Vivian recalls her silver-haired father forcing her to take medicine for her own well-being. She remembers him stopping her from climbing trees because he feared she would get hurt. Despite his control, Vivian tells the Duke she still loves her father very much. A sudden bright chime sounds as Vivian beams with a radiant, heart-melting smile. The Duke realizes that remaining trapped in the past only brings sadness to loved ones. His blue eyes shimmer with a mixture of sadness and realization. In a memory, the Duke sits by his dying daughter's bedside, admitting he hasn't completely forgiven her lover. A sudden, quiet sniffle sounds as Azella says she finally understands his perspective now that she is a mother. A sudden, light hum sounds as she asks her father to forgive his younger, flawed self. The Duke sits in silence, processing his daughter's final request. A sudden, light flap sounds as a bird soars toward the sunlit sky. A sudden, light rustle sounds as feathers drift slowly toward the trees. A sudden, sharp click sounds as a pencil rests on a drawing of a happy family. A sudden, loud bang sounds as the brown-haired girl expresses her frustration with her mother. She fumes with jealousy, wondering why Vivian is spending so much time in the mansion. A sudden, loud yell sounds as she decides to find a snack instead of being ignored. A sudden, sharp rattle sounds as she flings the door open and looks around. A sudden, heavy stomp sounds as she realizes even the maids are no longer answering her. She marches through the hallway, fuming at the lack of attention from the staff.
A sudden sharp halt sounds as she spots Vivian walking with a butler in the distance. She is shocked to see Vivian coming out of the Duke's office. A sudden light bow sounds as Vivian greets the butler, while the brown-haired girl watches in disbelief. A sudden sharp snap sounds as she vows to chase Vivian out before it is too late. A sudden light tap sounds as an unfinished drawing sits on a desk. Vivian tells Rahel she must leave soon and suggests meeting again the day after tomorrow. A sudden light gasp sounds as Rahel asks if Vivian will be mourning her mother tomorrow. Rahel looks down sadly, explaining she does not observe the anniversary of her mother's passing. Vivian expresses her concern, not wanting to say anything that might cause her friend pain. A sudden, quiet pause sounds as Rahel admits her grandfather would likely dislike her mourning. A sudden, light wrestle sounds as Vivian hugs Rahel, insisting it is natural to honor her mother. Rahel remains silent, her face clouded by a deep, lingering uncertainty. A sudden, cold chill sounds as a memory blames Rahel for her mother's suffering and illness. A sudden, quiet sniffle sounds as young Rahel watches her grandfather weep, mourning that Azella sacrificed herself for her daughter. The black-haired girl wonders if her mother's illness was her own fault. She bears the heavy burden of believing she is the reason her mother died. A sudden rhythmic sob sounds as the girl sits alone at a funeral while her grandfather remains consumed by grief. Surrounded by symbolic thorns, Rahel believes her grandfather must hate her and feels deeply sorry. Back in the present, Vivian looks at her friend with a concerned expression. Vivian gently asks Rahel if she misses her other. A sudden, quiet pause sounds as Rahel looks down, unable to find the words. Her face is clouded with a deep, lingering sadness. A sudden soft whimper sounds as Rahel finally admits she misses her mother a lot. Vivian listens with a resolute and sympathetic gaze. Vivian asks how she can help her friend find Pafret. She suggests going to the fourth-floor gallery where a portrait might be. A sudden, bright chime sounds as Vivian beams with a supportive smile. A sudden, light nod sounds as Rahel agrees she wants to bow. Vivian's radiant smile lights up her room. Vivian notes that one should bring flowers when visiting the deceased. Rahel recalls a specific flower her mother loved, and Vivian asks for details.
Rahel looks away, trying to remember the flower's appearance.
A sudden, light clap sounds as Vivian gets an idea. Rahel mentions a drawing in the library should show the flower, and Vivian asks for a description. A sudden, sharp creak sounds as Vivian peeks out to check the gallery. Vivian waves goodbye, promising to return in just a moment. The grand hallway stands empty and silent for a moment. A sudden, soft shuffle sounds as someone moves through the corridor. A sudden, sharp click sounds as the brown-haired girl enters a room with a sinister look. She maliciously vows that this will be the end for Vivian. Vivian cheers that she has finished making the paper flowers. She proudly poses, thinking she might be an origami genius. A sudden, light hum sounds as Vivian reports the gallery is clear, and Rahel nods. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as they peek out of the room together. They step out into the hallway to begin their secret mission. A sudden, light tip-tap sounds as they tiptoed down the carpeted hall. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as they are abruptly stopped in their tracks. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the nanny calls Vivian's name, shocking the girl. The nanny sternly asks to have a private conversation with Vivian. A sudden, quiet snicker sounds as Sally stands behind the nanny, making Vivian feel uneasy. Vivian stares at the duo with a growing sense of dread. A sudden, loud yell sounds as Sally accuses Vivian of stealing the young lady's belongings. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Rahel defends Vivian, stating they were together the whole time. Sally insists she saw Vivian sneaking out of the room earlier. The brown-haired girl claims Vivian snuck back into the room alone. Vivian firmly denies the accusation, stating she never went back. Sally smugly asks if there is anyone who can prove Vivian's whereabouts. Vivian stands her ground, demanding Sally prove her guilt instead. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Sally points at the bag Vivian is carrying. The brown-haired girl demands that Vivian open the bag immediately. Vivian worries that showing the paper flowers will expose their plan to visit the gallery. She feels trapped, knowing the secret flowers are hidden right inside. A sudden, quick dash sounds as Sally lunges forward to seize the bag. The brown-haired girl challenges Vivian to prove her confidence by showing the contents of her bag. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Sally aggressively dumps the bag over, while the pink-haired girl cries out in shock. A sudden, light thud sounds as a pile of delicate pink paper flowers scatters across the floor. A sudden, quiet tap sounds as a dark blue bow hairpin falls among the paper flowers, eliciting a shocked reaction. Vivian and Rahel stare at the fallen hairpin in stunned silence, their faces filled with disbelief. The pink-haired girl is frozen in horror, unable to comprehend what has just happened. Vivian realizes that a trap has been deliberately set to ensure she is expelled from the mansion.
The brown-haired nanny smirks with cold satisfaction, leaving Vivian to wonder why she would stoop so low. A sudden, loud yell sounds as Sally triumphantly holds up the hairpin, declaring it proof of Vivian's theft. The brown-haired girl points accusingly at the paper flowers, claiming they were only used as a cover to hide the stolen item. Margaret sternly calls Vivian a wicked child as several maids gather and begin to whisper behind them. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as the nanny demands to know why Vivian stole the lady's hairpin after being trusted so much. The pink-haired girl stands alone and trembling as the surrounding staff gossip about her alleged theft.
Vivian desperately tries to remain calm, struggling to find a way to logically prove her innocence.
She reflects on the secret mission she and Rahel shared, fearing that Rahel will no longer believe her. Vivian worries that her friend will think she has been manipulative and deceitful this entire time.
A sudden, quiet gasp sounds from the maids as they notice someone approaching the scene of the commotion.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the pink-haired girl turns her head in surprise.
The black-haired Duke and the mustached butler arrive, casting a heavy and authoritative presence over the hallway.
The Duke stands tall, his stern expression looming over everyone present as the tension in the air thickens. Margaret bows deeply as the Duke asks for the specific reason she is disciplining the pink-haired child. The nanny explains that Vivian allegedly entered Rahel's room alone and stole a valuable item. The Duke looks at her with a piercing gaze and asks if there is any concrete evidence for such a serious claim. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Sally steps forward to present the hairpin she found inside Vivian's bag. The Duke holds the ornament up and directly asks Vivian if she'd truly committed the theft. Vivian feels a crushing sense of despair, believing there is no way she can possibly prove her innocence. A sudden, quiet pause sounds before Rahel steps forward, claiming she was the one who gave the pin to her friend. The black-haired girl stands firmly in front of Vivian, shielding her from the accusations of the adults. Rahel coldly tells the nanny that she should not require permission to give her own belongings as gifts to a friend.
Margaret tries to argue that a true friend should point out mistakes rather than cover them up.
Rahel counters that a true friend stands by their companion and helps them when they are being treated unfairly.
The black-haired girl holds Vivian's hand tightly, showing her unwavering support despite the tension.
Margaret points toward the floor and asks why they were carrying around such scraps of paper.
Rahel explains that the two of them worked together to create these flowers as a gift for her late mother.
A sudden, quiet sniffle sounds as Rahel admits she was trying to take the gift to the corridor secretly to avoid upsetting her grandfather.
The Duke looks down and asks his granddaughter why she felt she couldn't simply tell him today.
Rahel looks away with a pained expression, stating she feared her grandfather would not be pleased with her mourning.
The Duke's face is clouded with a deep, visible sorrow as he processes the weight of Rahel's fear.
The butler notes that Vivian's innocence has been cleared and suggests that everyone return to their respective duties. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as the butler demands that Sally apologize properly for nearly ruining a girl's reputation.
The brown-haired girl fumes with intense rage and frustration, her face flushed with humiliation.
A sudden, quick dash sounds as Sally flees the room in tears while the nanny calls after her. Rahel reflects that people who frame others are never the type to offer a sincere apology. An awkward silence falls between the black-haired man and his granddaughter as they stand near each other. The Duke tells Rahel it is long past time for her to go home, signaling the end of the confrontation. A sudden, light gasp sounds as Vivian stops in her tracks, realizing something is being left behind. A sudden, light tip-tap sounds as the pink-haired girl kneels down on the carpet to retrieve the scattered flowers. Rahel asks what she is doing, suggesting they could find something much better to give to her mother later. A sudden, soft huff sounds as Vivian carefully picks up a paper flower, her eyes filled with determination. Vivian insists that she cannot allow her friend's sincere and precious feelings to be trampled and forgotten like this.
The Duke looks on with deep sorrow. The two girls watch him with concern.
They stand together at the white tombstone. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as the pink-haired girl kneels with the flowers. A sudden, light thud sounds as she places the bouquet there.
The Duke realizes Rahel shared the flower secret with her friend.
He acknowledges her deep desire to visit her mother's grave. The black-haired man regrets his past foolishness and late realization. A sudden, sharp flinch sounds as the girl looks at her grandfather. A sudden, quick swish sounds as she turns her head away. A sudden, rhythmic thumping sounds as she recalls the Duke's painful memory. A sudden, quiet sob sounds as she remembers her grandfather crying. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the girl is startled. The Duke regrets not bringing her to this place much sooner. A sudden, light tap sounds as he kneels by the grave.
He confesses to feeling responsible for her mother's death. He laments the mistake of sending her mother away years ago. A sudden, quick turn sounds as he faces his granddaughter.
The Duke stands tall in quiet, somber contemplation.
A sudden, soft drip sounds as Rahel listens to his apology. He admits to being a foolish grandfather who realized the truth too late.
Rahel wonders if these words were truly what she wanted. A sudden, dull throb sounds as she questions her own lingering anger.
A sudden, light swish sounds as Rahel turns away in confusion.
The Duke watches her with a somber, expectant expression.
Vivian explains that Rahel is likely just feeling awkward after their fight. The Duke listens as she describes the young lady's long-standing pain. Vivian asks if he will continue to wait for his granddaughter. A sudden, soft chuckle sounds as he promises to wait forever. Vivian offers to wait alongside him for her dear friend. A sudden, bright flash sounds as Vivian encourages Rahel to go ahead.
A sudden, quick pit-pat sounds as the girl runs toward the mansion.
A sudden, soft sparkle sounds as the Duke looks on hopefully. He bids a final, gentle farewell to the deceased lady.
The scene shifts to the quiet, sunlit library. A sudden, light footstep sounds as Vivian enters the library.
She finds her friend huddled alone on the floor. Vivian looks down at her with a gentle, supportive smile. A brief moment of reflection passes between the two girls. Vivian continues to watch over her grieving, silent companion. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as she asks about Rahel's feelings. She offers her support if Rahel can share her heart's truth. Rahel reflects on the complexity of her current, true feelings. She looks up with a tearful and uncertain gaze. Rahel admits that her emotions are currently very unclear to her. She confesses to feeling a confusing mix of happiness and sadness. She asks if Vivian can accept her current unstable state. Vivian responds with a warm and deeply understanding smile. She vows to share every emotion alongside her friend forever. Vivian reaffirms that she is firmly on Rahel's side. Vivian smiles brightly among delicate flowers.
Rahel looks on with soft eyes.
Vivian expresses her deep personal affection for Rahel. 2 months pass since the mother's anniversary.
Rahel leads Vivian to the magic training grounds.
Rahel reveals her hidden powers to Vivian. Rahel explains her mana-absorbing constitution to Vivian. Vivian reflects on her happiness despite knowing the story. Vivian is happy that Rahel trusts her. Vivian vows to only play with Rahel. Rahel worries about being abandoned by Vivian. Vivian promises never to hold boys' hands.
A sudden, sharp snap sounds as she clenches her fist.
Vivian hopes her vow reassures Rahel. A sudden, rhythmic thumping sounds as doors knock. The butler invites Vivian and Rahel to tea. Rahel tells everyone to get ready. Rahel finds stability and accepts her grandfather. Vivian is relieved Rahel has someone to rely on.
A sudden, soft huff sounds as Vivian gasps.
Vivian hears a strange, mysterious buzzing sound. A sudden, quick swish sounds as she comes. Vivian feels called to the forbidden West Forest. Vivian dismisses the strange sound to Rahel. A sudden, quick pit-pat sounds as they walk.
Rain pours heavily against the window. Rahel asks the Duke why he calls. The Duke tells the girls to sit.
The Duke looks at them seriously. A sudden, light snap sounds as Vivian pulls away. A sudden, light swish sounds as Vivian worries. Vivian feels nervous under the Duke's scare. The Duke discusses the local rainy climate. Vivian admits she enjoys sleeping during rain. Vivian worries about the upcoming summer festival. Vivian explains the festival traditions to the Duke. The Duke finds the ghost costumes interesting. Vivian's eyes sparkle with excitement. Vivian confirms that Rahel wants to attend.
A sudden, sharp flinch sounds as Vivian reacts.
Vivian panics about the Duke's intuition while Rahel tells her to calm down.
Rahel firmly states her desire to attend the festival.
Vivian celebrates the Duke's kindness with enthusiastic cheers. The Duke offers Vivian's father a job as an assistant chef. Vivian is shocked by the proposal for her father. Vivian realizes the Duke respects her deeply. Vivian considers the convenience of the Duke's offer. Vivian imagines a future of immense wealth. Vivian surprisingly declines the Duke's job offer.
The Duke asks Vivian for her reasoning.
Vivian inwardly confesses her father's cooking is terrible. She feels dishonest praising his lack of talent. The Duke asks if she is simply being humble and suggests a daughter should be proud of her father in public. A sudden, soft chuckle sounds as the Duke finds her refusal unexpected and expresses a new curiosity to try her father's baking. Vivian wonders if her father has any skills. She reacts with horror at a late-night discovery. Her father presents a tray of blue lumps. The silver-haired man happily presents his new menu item, explaining he spent several days developing it for their shop. Vivian demands to know what ingredients he used to turn the bread blue. He explains he added medicinal herbs and food coloring to make it less boring, while Vivian reflects that Lu is known to kill appetites. Vivian reluctantly takes a bite of bread. Her father eagerly asks for her opinion as she reflects that the taste is only bearable because it is healthy. A sudden heavy thud sounds as the silver-haired man collapses in despair, while Vivian concludes the bakery needs his good looks to survive. Vivian worries she was too harsh and offers to eat at least one more to comfort him. Vivian holds a piece of blue bread and asks her father if he would consider entering House Edelwine as a servant. The silver-haired man is startled by the mention. A sudden cold shiver sounds as he flatly refuses to go to the Edelwine estate. He repeats his firm refusal to go there. Vivian highlights the benefits of the new job. He prioritizes his freedom over being owned. A pensive silence falls over the silver-haired man. A sudden, soft thud sounds as the father pulls his daughter into a tight hub. A sudden, light tap sounds as Vivian reassures him that she enjoys their life together and only suggested the job because he works so hard. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as he strokes her pink hair with deep affection. He suggests they eat the medicinal ursip. He reveals he used leftover herbs again. Vivian feels a sense of impending doom. He asks about her lessons at the Betty. Vivian reports on her history class today. The young girl thinks carefully about the lesson. Vivian mentions the name of the famous commander. A sudden, violent cough sounds from the man. Vivian frantically tries to provide him with water. Vivian asks if he knows the person she mentioned while the silver-haired man recovers from his choking fit. He awkwardly admits the man is quite well known. Vivian reflects on the legend of the hero. History reveals the existence of magic-wielding demons. Conflict flared as demons pillaged human lands. The Emperor ordered an invasion 10 years ago. A legendary genius swordmaster led the Imperial Knights. He achieved many victories against the demon forces. He reportedly died after staying behind during retreat. He was officially declared missing in action later. Historical records detail the hero's final stand. Peace returned to the realm following the invasion.
Vivian honors the memory of the fallen hero.
Her father asks for her young perspective. Vivian tries to sound like an admiring child. She enthusiastically describes how cool the hero was. She praises his bravery and his selfless sacrifice. The silver-haired man suggests that the legendary hero might not be as admirable as history claims. He explains to the young girl that history is a narrative written by the victors to serve their own interests. He notes that the hero was celebrated primarily because he belonged to the human race. Vivian listens as her father suggests that good individuals can be found even among demons. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as he pauses, visibly shaken by her question about whether he has ever met a demon. He looks away and admits he encountered one before the demon realm was sealed. Vivian recalls the historical account of the Demon King closing the passage after losing the war. He smiles warmly at her, expressing his deep hope that she lives a life free of his own regrets. A sudden light tap sounds as Vivian nods, promising to judge the goodness of others for herself. He affectionately pinches her cheek, praising her for being such a smart and kind daughter. The scene transitions to a quiet, star-filled night sky. A sudden light creak sounds as the father enters the room to check if Vivian is ready for bed. He finds her standing by the window, lost in contemplation while staring at the stars. Vivian is startled and jumps back when her father asks if something outside has caught her eye. He suspects that she is intentionally hiding a worry to avoid causing him distress. A sudden soft rustle sounds as he lifts her into a comforting embrace. He gently encourages her to share what is on her mind before his arms get tired. He smiles and reassures her that there is no reason to keep secrets if it is truly nothing. Vivian admits she feels a strange and persistent pull coming from the forest. She clarifies that it is not a specific voice, but rather a feeling that the forest itself is calling her. The silver-haired man becomes somber as he repeats her observation about the woods. A sudden light swish sounds as he turns his gaze toward the dark, distant trees. He playfully questions if she is just feeling rebellious, but Vivian firmly denies any desire to go there. A sudden light thud sounds as he places her in bed, reminding her to never enter the dangerous forest. He tucks his daughter in for the night as she sleepily agrees to follow his warning. A sudden, soft smooch sounds as he kisses her forehead and wishes her sweet dreams. A sudden, light swish sounds as the curtains flutter gently in the night breeze.
He stands by the window watching his daughter sleep while the cool night air enters the room. He reflects on whether a significant event has recently occurred within the Forbidden Woods. He recalls how the Emperor's knights once searched the land for weak points in the Demon Realm's barrier. He knows the Emperor's true motive was to find and seize the Demon King's heart. Legend states that a demon's heart is a concentrated core of immense and ancient magical power. The Emperor's obsession with power led him to covet this source of infinite mana. The silver-haired man looks at the calendar and notes the suspicious timing of recent events. His golden eye narrows as he considers the hidden dangers currently surrounding them. He notes Vivian's excitement for the upcoming summer festival marked on her calendar. He remembers his last visit to the forest occurred back in the month of March. A sudden light flip sounds as he realizes his visit was just before the Duke arrived. He feels a growing sense of urgency regarding the secrets buried in the woods. He decides that the time has finally come for him to investigate the forest personally. A sudden violent tremor sounds as a brown-haired woman shakes with fear outside a grand door. She reads a terrifying letter warning that hiding a traitor's family is punishable by death. Another message warns that concealing a traitor's son leads to a sentence of hard labor. A sudden realization strikes her that someone has discovered Rahel's true identity as a boy. The woman is paralyzed by the weight of this dangerous and life-threatening revelation. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as she reads a blackmail note accusing her daughter of leaking the secret. She recalls her daughter Sally impatiently asking when they would finally get rid of their guest. Sally had expressed a petty fear that her target might end up marrying Rahel. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as the mother grabs Sally to scold her for her extreme carelessness. A sudden, quiet sob sounds as Sally admits she spoke out of anger without considering the consequences. The brown-haired woman warns the young girl that keeping the secret is a matter of life or death. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the woman scowls. A sudden, light tap sounds as someone knocks on the large double doors. A sudden, soft creak sounds as a maid delivers a mysterious letter from an unknown man. The woman trembles in terror while reading the secret message. She realizes her daughter is now deeply entangled in the dangerous situation. A sudden sharp rip sounds as she destroys the letter and resolves to meet the sender. A serene building stands under the starry night sky. A sudden light chuckle sounds as a hooded figure cautiously enters a quiet room. A sudden light tap sounds as she knocks on a door to confirm the location. A sudden sharp flinch sounds when a voice from within commands her to enter. A sudden, soft creak sounds as the door opens to reveal a man waiting inside. The inspector asks about her life in the countryside as she reacts with shock. She remembers his previous visit to the villa several months ago. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as she identifies the man as the Emperor's inspector. She panics at the terrifying thought that Rachel's secret has been discovered. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as she falls to her knees and begs for her life. She offers a desperate plea regarding her daughter, but the inspector dismisses her sentimentality. A sudden cold shiver sounds as he explains the Emperor wants the matter handled discreetly. A sudden cold shiver sounds as he commands her to handle the situation quietly. A sudden light tap sounds as he describes a grim plan involving an unfortunate accident. A sudden soft rustle sounds as he kneels and explains this is the Emperor's desire. A sudden heavy thud sounds as he challenges her to find a way to survive. A carriage waits near a sunlit town fountain. A sudden, light thud sounds as Vivian stands before the closed doors. Vivian reflects on her maturity and her understanding of the hardships of childcare. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as she questions her father's timing for a social break. A sudden, light cheer sounds as she laments missing potential profits at the bakery. She expresses deep frustration over his sudden desire to meet a friend. Her father explains his connection to a friend named Max and the need to depart. A sudden soft rustle sounds as he insists on attending a funeral for a relative. A sudden soft sob sounds as Vivian notes the relative is practically a stranger. A sudden heavy thud sounds as he promises to return before the festival ends. A sudden soft rustle sounds as he gives her instructions about hygiene and behavior. A sudden light tap sounds as he warns her to avoid scary-looking men. He laughs warmly at the irony of their parent-child dynamic. A sudden soft rustle sounds as he turns to address the waiting butler. A sudden light thud sounds as he bows and asks the butler to watch over his daughter. A sudden quick tap sounds as Vivian runs toward the butler to begin their journey. She reflects on the change from her original plan to stay elsewhere. Rachel questions Vivian about her plan to stay at the general store with the boy Peter. Vivian confirms that she will be staying at Peter's family home. Rachel immediately rejects the idea, much to the young pink-haired girl's confusion. A sudden, light swish sounds as Rachel argues that older children should not house together. Vivian tries to reassure her about the separate rooms, but Rachel remains deeply opposed. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Vivian playfully accuses her of being jealous of Peter.
A sudden, soft giggle sounds as she reassures Rachel that she is still her favorite friend.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Rachel stands up and suggests Vivian stay at the villa. Rachel points out the villa's guest accommodations, and Vivian begins to consider the offer. Vivian believes staying with her friend is much safer than traveling by carriage. She eagerly decides to ask her father for permission. Following Rachel's wishes, Vivian stays at the estate as her father departs for his trip. Vivian and Rahel imagine having fun together with pillow fights. Vivian is incredibly excited about the prospect of a sleepover at her friend's house. The two friends begin their evening with a game of chess. As the night goes on, Vivian starts to feel sleepy while playing. Rahel stands to leave for her own room, confusing Vivian. Vivian argues that friends usually sleep in the same room during a sleepover. Rahel claims it goes against propriety, despite Vivian noting they are both girls. Vivian continues to question why they cannot stay together if they are both girls. Rahel remains flustered but firm as she refuses the request. Vivian continues to whine and plead for them to spend the night together. She worries that this might be their only chance to stay over. Rahel hesitates for a moment before deciding to leave anyway. She gives a final refusal, leaving Vivian dejected. Vivian watches sadly as the door closes behind her friend. She suddenly realizes the contradiction in being invited just to sleep alone. A sudden heavy thud sounds as Vivian flops onto the bed in frustration. A sudden soft rustle sounds as she finds the bed quite comfortable nonetheless. Vivian tries to drift off to sleep in the quiet room. A sudden sharp gasp sounds as her eyes fly open in the dark. She feels the strange, persistent calling sensation return once more. A tense atmosphere builds as the night deepens. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as she remains wide awake in the night. The feeling that something is calling her grows even stronger. A sudden quick snap sounds as she sits up, tracing the sound to the woods. A sudden light tap sounds as she walks toward the window. She wonders about the identity of the voice that won't stop calling her. The dark, mysterious forest stretches out under the moonlight. Vivian begins to fear that she might be losing her mind. A sudden heavy thud sounds as she wonders if the voice belongs to a ghost or demon.
A sudden cold shiver sounds as she admits her growing terror. Huddled on the bed, Vivian desperately wishes for her father's presence.
A warm light glows from a lamp in the quiet hallway. A sudden light tap sounds as Vivian knocks on her friend's door. She pauses, worrying that Rahel might already be asleep. The door begins to open as light spills into the hall. Rahel appears in the doorway and asks why she has come. Vivian tearfully asks to sleep together because she is too scared to be alone. Rahel stares at her with a surprised and silent expression. A sudden light thud sounds as Rahel takes her hand and leads her inside. A sudden light tap sounds as Rahel prepares the bed for them. Vivian asks to keep the light on to help ease her fear. Rahel agrees to stay up and read while Vivian sleeps first. Vivian realizes her friend is staying awake just to comfort her. Her heart feels light and happy because of Rahel's quiet kindness. She decides she can trust Rahel with the secret of the strange voice. Vivian admits she has been feeling a mysterious pull calling her. She asks Rahel if she is crazy for hearing a voice no one else can hear. Rahel labels her friend a weird kid, causing the pink-haired girl to react with a sudden, sharp gasp of surprise. The black-haired child clarifies that she isn't weird, but rather possesses a special and unique quality. He explains that exorcists and spirit summoners are known for their rare ability to perceive the voices of spirits. Vivian feels a sense of relief as she realizes her experiences might actually be signs of a special ability rather than madness. Rahel asks if the pole is still present, but Vivian admits it only haunts her when the world falls quiet. The boy falls silent as he considers her confession, admitting he has no words of comfort to offer. Vivian worries that her honesty was too sudden for her reserved friend, who isn't the talkative type. A sudden soft hum sounds as a gentle melody fills the room to soothe the frightened girl. Rahel explains that the tune is a lullaby from his mother, though the lyrics have long been forgotten. Sparkles fill the air as Vivian praises the beauty of his voice, making the boy blush with embarrassment. Vivian insists her praise is genuine, even when Rahel questions how a voice can be described as visually pretty.
She describes his voice as a comforting presence, like a summer breeze blowing softly through a lush forest. To her, Rahel's voice feels initially distant and cold, but transforms into something gentle and welcoming.
A sudden, light chuckle sounds as Rahel smiles down at his friend while she drifts into a peaceful sleep.
Vivian feels her tension melt away as a heavy wave of sleepiness finally overcomes her.
Before she loses consciousness, she realizes there is one more thing she needs to say to him. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as she whispers a final thank you before falling into a deep slumber.
A sudden, quiet whisper sounds as Rahel wishes her a good night under the starlit sky. A sudden, light chirp sounds as a bird greets the morning sun outside the mansion windows.
The Duke instructs his butler to oversee the mansion and ensure Rahel is well cared for during his absence. He notes that his return is uncertain, but expects to be back by the end of the upcoming festival.
The butler suggests an earlier return to spend time with Vivian, prompting the Duke to reconsider his schedule. The Duke inquires about the children and learns they ended up sharing a room out of fear.
A sudden, light chuckle sounds as he realizes the girls likely prefer his absence to his constant supervision.
He reflects on the unique circumstances surrounding Rahel's current life at the estate. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the butler teases him about already choosing Vivian as a future family member. A sudden, quick snap sounds as the Duke turns away, blushing while making his hasty departure.
He privately resolves that their difference in social status will not be an obstacle if they choose each other later. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as he walks away, acknowledging that Rahel is currently living as a girl.
An oppressive shadow looms over a young child standing before a massive, terrifying gateway with glowing red eyes.
A sudden, heavy sigh sounds as the Duke decides to postpone his worries until the future is decided.
A sudden, light tap sounds as he pauses at the ornate gate before leaving the estate behind.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Vivian and Rahel race down the grand staircase together. They arrive at the bottom to bid the Duke a safe and pleasant journey. Rahel places a hand over his heart, looking somewhat flustered by the Duke's attention. A sudden light blink sounds as the Duke asks the girls if there is anything special they would like. Vivian hesitates before answering, seemingly unsure of what to request from the high-ranking noble. She suddenly cheers and asks for the most delicious and famous dessert available in the capital city. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as he pats her head, noting how much she reminds him of Isella.
He turns to Rahel to ask for her request, and the child asks for more books to read.
The boy silently clarifies to himself that he is specifically interested in studying magic. The Duke observes that the boy makes requests primarily to meet the expectations placed upon him. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as he gives the black-haired child a gentle and encouraging pat on the head.
The two girls wave enthusiastically as the Duke prepares to depart for his trick.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as the Duke leaves, feeling a strong conviction that he must return safely.
A sudden, light chatter sounds as the two friends head back up the stairs together.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the brown-haired woman stares forward with an intensely dark and menacing expression. Vivian expresses her excitement about the Duke's generosity while they explore the Grand Library. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as she asks what specific topic has captured Rahel's interest today. Rahel reveals his intention to research spirit mages, leaving Vivian with a look of pure surprise. The black-haired child suggests the presence Vivian felt is likely spirit-related.
Vivian realizes her friend has been deeply considering their late-night conversation.
She enthusiastically offers to assist her friend with searching the library. A warm light illuminates a stack of books prepared for research. The two girls spend the evening diligently studying together on the couch. Vivian exclaims with delight after finally discovering the information she sought. The book explains that spirit mages typically contract with only one spirit. Spirits require mana from their contractors to manifest and exert elemental power. A rare few can hear spirits' voices before forming a formal contract. Vivian excitedly confirms that Rahel was correct about the mysterious voices. She wonders if becoming a spirit mage could potentially cure her illness. Vivian looks forward to no longer being a burden to her friend. Rahel remains quiet as Vivian expresses her urgent desire for recovery. Vivian discovers there are 6 primary types of elemental spirits to find. The book illustrates spirits associated with water, fire, earth, wind, light, and dark. It notes that spirits of light and darkness are exceptionally rare. Dark spirits only respond to demon-blooded individuals and are seldom seen. Vivian focuses on learning the specific method for becoming a spirit mage. The only requirement is being chosen by a spirit based on mana.
Spirits may appear during danger or manifest unexpectedly during the morning.
Vivian learns spirits reside in environments that match their elemental attributes. A sudden, quick snap sounds as Vivian decides to attempt a summons.
She raises her lantern and commandingly calls for a fire spirit. To Vivian's disappointment, the lantern shows absolutely no sign of reaction. She tries another dramatic summoning pose while Rahel watches with exhaustion. Vivian concludes fire isn't her element as her friend looks deeply embarrassed. She suggests they head out to the garden to continue their search. Vivian rushes toward the door, eager to try other elemental summoning.
Rahel is left alone on the couch, lost in deep thought.
She worries Vivian will no longer need her support once she's healthy.
Rahel fears their natural physical closeness will disappear if Vivian recovers.
A sudden, heavy sigh sounds as she admits her internal sense of emptiness. In the rear garden, Vivian energetically calls out for various spirits. She leans out of a high window, attempting to summon wind. Vivian even tries to manifest a water spirit during her bath. She feels dejected as the festival begins without any spirit appearing. Vivian wonders if putting herself in danger is the only way. A sudden, quick snap sounds as she spots Rahel approach her. Vivian is surprised to find the nanny accompanying her friend outside. The nanny explains that the Duke requested she supervise them today. Vivian feels awkward but accepts having an extra guardian for safety. She inquires if the maid Sally will be joining their group. The nanny claims Sally is unwell despite Vivian's earlier observations. The nanny prepares to lead the two girls to the festival. Vivian is overwhelmed by the massive crowds at the village festival. She claims to be an expert on the local festival routes.
Vivian excitedly pulls Rahel toward a nearby game booth for fun.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as she prepares to throw darts. Vivian confidently aims for a pink bear prize while throwing darts. To her dismay, the darts bounce harmlessly off the wooden board. The merchant asks if Vivian wants the bear, and she hesitatingly agrees. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Rahel takes aim. A sudden, quick thud sounds as the darts hit setter. Vivian wonders if Rahel is a secret dart genius. A sudden, heavy grunt sounds as Vivian receives the prize. A sudden, low gurgle sounds as Vivian thanks her friend. Vivian feels embarrassed by her hungry stomach. The nanny suggests getting snacks for the lady and the knights.
Rahel tells the nanny to wait while she runs the errand.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as Vivian hands over the bear. A sudden, steady cap sounds as they head for snaps. A sudden, heavy thump sounds as the nanny looks conflicted.
The cloaked man plots to strike during the festival when the lady's guard is down.
He orders his accomplice to abduct the commoner first before taking the young lady under the cover of the plaza play. The nanny internally blames Vivian for the young lady's current situation while the girl orders food. A sudden, quick tap sounds as the nanny's resentment grows. Vivian says she will deliver the snacks and tells the nanny where to wait. A sudden, low hum sounds as the nanny worries she will ruin the plan. The nanny warns Vivian that it is dangerous to be alone, but the girl insists on going. A sudden, steady tap sounds as Vivian walks away. A sudden, heavy pant sounds as Vivian realizes she must investigate. Vivian spots the danger lurking in the crowded market. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as the nanny decides to proceed. A sudden, loud shout sounds as Vivian warns her friend. A sudden, quick tap sounds as Vivian screams for Rahel to look behind her.
The cloaked kidnapper is startled by the child's sudden interference.
Rahel turns with glowing eyes as she prepares a spell. A sudden, loud boom sounds as a magic circle erupts. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as a hand reaches for Vivian. The kidnapper decides to take the girl instead of his original target.
Rahel cries out in panic as her friend is grabbed.
Rahel watches in horror as Vivian is carried away.
Vivian is silenced as she is dragged into the dark.
A sudden, fast tap sounds as Rahel desperately pursues them. A sudden, soft thud sounds as the bear falls. Darkness swallows the scene as the abduction concludes. A sudden, soft drip sounds as Vivian wakes in a cage. Vivian shivers as she notices the freezing temperature. A sudden, light rustle sounds as she questions her location. She remembers the bars and her terrifying abduction. Vivian peers out at the cold stone walls of her prison. She recalls following the suspicious nanny through the market stalls. Vivian remembers witnessing the nanny's secret meeting with the cloaked man. A sudden, heavy beat sounds as Vivian realizes she was kidnapped. She tries to calm herself, figuring out the kidnapper's true intentions. A sudden, quiet gasp sounds as she hears someone approach her. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Vivian feigns sleep. A sudden, loud clatter sounds against the iron bars. A guard yawns while watching over the unconscious captives. Vivian is relieved that they believe she is still up.
Rahel contemplates how the antagonists were targeting her but took Vivian hostage instead.
A memory or vision shows a cloaked man with a dagger stalking Vivian in a crowd. The narration notes that Rahel grew up safely and became the original story's villain. Vivian cowers in distress, feeling the weight of her current predicament. A sudden, quiet realization sounds as Vivian recalls the original story never had this scene.
The original timeline's adult protagonists stand together, while adult Rahel's shadow looms behind them.
The adult Vivian from the original story reads, noting this event should have triggered Rahel's descent.
Vivian realizes her friendship with Rahel has completely diverted the world from its original path.
Vivian lies on the cold floor of her cage, terrified that Rahel is now in grave danger. A sudden, soft sob sounds as Vivian blames herself for putting her friend at risk.
Vivian finds new resolve, deciding she must escape her confinement to save her friend.
She focuses her attention on the heavy iron lock securing her cage door. Nearby, a brown-haired man with a beard dozes in a chair, likely guarding the area.
Vivian wonders if the sleeping guard possesses the key required for her release.
A sudden, quiet call sounds as someone approaches the sleeping guard.
A cloaked man wakes the guard, inquiring if their young captive is still unconscious.
The cloaked man stands by the bars, urging his companion to move out immediately.
The guard grumbles about the manpower needed for one child while mentioning another intruder's approach.
Vivian listens intently as the men discuss a weird guy they've been ordered to investigate.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the guard stands up, preparing to depart his post. Vivian watches the keys hanging from the guard's belt as he begins to walk away. She realizes her chance to escape is slipping away as the guard disappears into the darkness. Vivian stares helplessly through the bars at the retreating back of her captor.
A sudden, soft, metallic clatter sounds as the keys inexplicably fall onto the stone floor.
Vivian is stunned by the stroke of luck, but realizes the keys are still out of reach.
A sudden, heavy rattle sounds as she fruitlessly tries to force the bars apart.
She desperately pleads for an escape, her hands gripping the unyielding iron in despair.
Vivian begs for a way out, her only thought being Rahel's safety over her own.
She reflects that her fear for Rahel's life far outweighs her concern for herself.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Vivian strains against her cage with tear-filled eyes. Vivian weeps over her powerlessness, frustrated that she can do nothing but cry.
She wipes her tears, refusing to be a passive heroine waiting for a rescuer. A sudden, determined shout sounds as she rejects the idea of being a damsel in distress.
A sudden, soft hum sounds as the keys are lifted by a mysterious purple glow. Vivian watches in wide-eyed amazement as the keys begin to float through the air.
A large, translucent purple spirit manifests before the cage, holding the keys for her.
A sudden, quiet whisper sounds as Vivian asks if the being is helping her escape. She feels a strange sense of familiarity with the entity despite never having seen it before.
Vivian realizes this is the presence that has been calling out to her from the shadows. The purple blob-like entity represents the mysterious energy that has haunted her recently.
A sudden, soft metallic clink sounds as the spirit drops the keys into Vivian's hands.
Vivian thanks the entity, wondering if she has finally encountered a real spirit.
The spirit floats nearby, its form shifting and glowing with a deep violet light.
She identifies it as a darkness spirit based on its distinctive color and origin.
Vivian gazes at the spirit, processing the significance of its sudden appearance.
She recalls that darkness spirits are only supposed to appear to those with demon blood.
Vivian worries that forming a contract with such a spirit will cause others to hate her.
She hesitates, questioning if it is truly right to ally herself with a being of darkness.
A sudden, gentle voice sounds as she recalls her father's wisdom about the nature of demons.
Her father once told her that being a demon doesn't automatically make someone evil.
Vivian recalls her father's lesson and decides she will judge people's character for herself.
A quiet affirmation lingers in the shadows.
Vivian glows with radiant light as she offers to make a formal contract with the spirit.
Her hand makes contact with the spirit as a sudden, quick tap sounds. The spirit reacts with a bright, sudden flash of light.
A massive pillar of purple energy erupts from the cage as a sudden, loud burst sounds.
In the forest, guards discuss their orders and suggest letting a rookie handle the situation.
A guard notices a cloaked figure approaching through the dark woods.
The guard warns the stranger to leave while he is still feeling generous. He grows aggressive, questioning if the stranger can even hear him.
The guard threatens to kill the stranger if he does not leave immediately.
A sudden, quiet gasp sounds as the guard is struck with a fatal blow. The dying guard realizes he never even saw his opponent draw his blade. The remaining guards watch in horror as their companion collapses in a sudden, quiet shock.
Another guard leaps forward in a rage, cursing the stranger for his actions. A brilliant flash illuminates the drawing of a sword. The cloaked man strikes down the attacker as a sudden, pained groan sounds. The cloaked man reveals glowing orange eyes filled with a cold, menacing intent. Blood sprays as another guard falls to a sudden, loud scream. The cloaked man moves like a shadow, carving through the guards in the dark. A sudden, desperate whimper sounds as a guard begs for his life. The stranger delivers a final, silent strike to his opponent. A sudden, terrified stutter sounds as the last guard calls the man a monster. The cloaked man stands motionless, enveloped in a dark, oppressive aura. He coldly demands to know where Vivian is as a sudden, heavy tread sounds. His voice remains calm yet deadly as he repeats the demand for the child's location. Dark energy swirls around the cloaked man as he looms over his terrified victim. The scene shifts to the vast, shimmering expanse of the night sky. Rahel tracks the kidnapper's path through the summer woods. She notes that the damp ground has made tracking their trail much easier. Rahel realizes the antagonists shifted their target to Vivian just to lure her in. She acknowledges the blatant trap but refuses to wait for reinforcements. Rahel vows that she will never forgive herself if Vivian is harmed. She moves stealthily through the deep shadows of the forest. Rael activates a magic circle to move through the woods with supernatural speed. Nearby guards investigate a noise but find nothing but empty shadows. Hidden high in the trees, Rahel decides to bypass the guards to avoid being slowed down. She teleports through the forest in a series of bright blue flashes. The silent, dark forest stands still in the moonlight. Guards near a cave discuss the hostage's status and the ambush they have prepared. Rahel confirms that Vivian is being held inside the cave. She urges herself to move faster to reach her friend in time. A sudden, light chime sounds as the constant magic use causes Rahel to feel tiffy. Rahel admits that the frequent teleportation is taking a heavy toll on her body. Her foot accidentally snaps a dry branch with a sharp crack. A guard below is alerted by the sound and looks up at the trees. A sudden, swift grab sounds as the guard pulls Rahel down, mocking her for being seen. Rahel gasps in shock as she is yanked from her perch. She hits the ground hard as a sudden, pained grunt sounds. The guard looms over Rahel, mocking her for coming to rescue the hostage alone. An angry guard accuses the girl of looking down on them. A black-haired guard lunges from the trees toward Rahel. Rahel gasps in shock as the guard swings a sword. Rahel quickly summons a glowing blue magic circle for protection. A sudden, loud boom sounds as the guard is blasted away. The force of the magic slams the attacker into a tree. Another guard attacks, yelling about her arrogance as he lunges. A sudden, sharp clank sounds as his blade hits her barrier. Rahel declares she will not be caught off guard again. A brilliant flash illuminates her hand as she channels more power. The guards retreat a few steps, visibly exhausted by the fight. Rahel realizes she cannot hold back if she wants to survive. She contemplates the dire consequences of failing to defend herself. The two guards prepare for another assault as Rahel pants. A guard lunges with a deadly shout, intending to strike. Rahel decides she must use lethal force to end the conflict. Vivian's voice rings out as a massive purple spirit manifests. Rahel freezes, instantly recognizing her friend's familiar calling voice. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as Vivian throws herself into a hug. Vivian frantically checks her friend for any signs of injury. Rahel finds it ironic that the kidnap victim is the worried one. The guards shout in terror at the massive, glowing purple monster. A sudden, wet squelch sounds as the spirit ensnares the attackers. Vivian orders the creature to break the guard's limbs instead of killing. The violet entity's form ripples and expands with a strange power. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the guards are spat out. The massive spirit begins to shrink back into a smaller form. Vivian identifies the small purple blob as a darkness spirit. Vivian promises to explain everything once they are safely away.